Gretkin,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Shaner. Here. Scott,
Here.
Waters.
Here. All right, go ahead.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Teresa Fitch, Interim Finance Director. I will present to you a condensed version of the budget, the operating portion of that today. The first slide you'll see here, I divided out, there you go, the different categories in the budget. Today we'll be focusing on the operating portion, which is a large portion of the total budget. We do have a total budget of $291 million. $166.9 million of that will be the operating budget that we discussed today. Here you'll see the levy history. It's about a 12-year span of the levy history. It stayed relatively steady here. We do have the original proposed budget was a flat levy that we proposed to you in your book. We did send out an additional information regarding some insurance premium holidays, which could reduce, should you approve that, reduce the levy significantly. So right here, we wanted to go over an analysis, as we previously discussed with the equalization. The prior evaluation of $100,000 is now more like $108,000. So we wanted to give you a full picture of what the levy meant for a $108,000 resident. So on the original proposed budget, we would have seen an increase of $61 per household. On the flat levy proposed, it would have been a $40 increase. And with the premium holiday proposal, it would be a $3 decrease in the budget.
Explain that for the Sioux City Journal one more time, because they always don't print that good news once in a while. So,
Mayor and Council, I'll, if you don't mind, I'll.
Yep, nope, that's fine.
Over the past 3 weeks, Finance, at the urging of an elected official to be nameless, asked us to take a good hard look at the health insurance fund. As you're aware, this current fiscal year, we had a premium holiday whereby employees and the city did not contribute the health insurance premium to the health insurance fund. That analysis is based on the overall health of the fund. In completing our analysis over the past 2 weeks, we determined that next year we could also have a premium holiday, which would be 2 months of no premiums charged to either the employee or charged against department budgets. In the current fiscal year, we did not use that money in any way, shape, or form, the premium holiday, so it is just literally sitting in the health insurance fund. So the health insurance fund had very minimal impact this year with our premium holiday. What we're proposing is to take that money that wasn't used this year and the premium holiday money that isn't being used, won't be used by departments next year, and reduce that from their budgets. It'll have no overall impact on operations in any way. It'll strictly be using the fund balance of the health insurance fund. In our analysis, we could do that without in any way harming the health insurance fund. It's an extremely healthy fund. With our changes to how we charge premiums, going from just flat amounts to percentages, and with our wellness program, we anticipate continued savings in the health insurance fund. And then long term, we're going to working with Gallagher, our consultant, we're going to take a good hard look at what the rate should be going forward, so that health insurance premium holidays won't be needed in the future. We're correcting it over this year and next year, and then we want to make a long-term correction to the health insurance premiums so that they reflect the true cost of providing health care. So in layman's terms, we're actually showing that the $100,000 house become a $108,000 house and still reducing taxes on that house by $3. Unlike saying you cut the levy, that doesn't mean anything if you take advantage of the increase in the valuations, which other governmental jurisdictions are doing. So when citizens get their tax increase,
call the other two taxing bodies, don't call the city, because we've tried to do our part to make that happen.
And in this case, we actually reduced the levy rate by 79 cents.
Right, but levies they don't mean anything because it's all based on valuation, so. All right,
They don't call the city, do they? They call the mayor?
well, they sure chew me out when they see me, that's for sure.
The next slide would be the effect on the commercial businesses. The original proposed would have been an increase of $34.20. Flat would have been no change, as the rollback hasn't changed. And the premium holiday would be a decrease of $71.
Just as kind of some other side issues, the premium holiday also benefits all our other funds, so it'll have a significant impact on both the water and sewer funds, but also road use and other funds that currently pay into. So it'll have a positive impact throughout the entire organization and all funds.
And the last slide I have here is just to give you a recap of where the taxes do go. As we all know, a large portion of our taxes go to public safety, 65% of the taxes. The next largest is debt service at 24%. The transportation is at 6%, and then recreation, community development is at 5% of the overall tax. And that's all I have for you. Do you guys have any additional questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, legal.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Nicole DuBois, City Attorney. Our budget is fairly the same as it was last year. We have the same complement of individuals still in the department. We did ask for one improvement request this year for reclassification of the administrative secretary position to a risk manager coordinator position. This would be the same payroll classification as an administrative assistant, of which we have one in the department currently. A little bit different pay range, but there is some overlap. It wasn't much of an increase to go to this reclassification. We believe it fits the duties of that position as they relate to working with Dawn Trometer in our office currently and handling a lot of the risk management functions that we have. She processes all the 411 claims, handles the other claims that come in through the department, water main breaks, sewer breaks, and handles the existing work comp matters that we are still covering in the department that aren't currently covered by our new insurance provider. So we're asking for that from the council today in the approved operating budget. Additionally, I do have some good news to report. Our mod factor with our work comp insurance decreased. We're at a rating of 0.99, which is a 29% decrease from where we came into the program with the insurance, and it's anticipated to save $250,000 in premium for the upcoming year.
I just question, had we done that 8 years ago?
I agree, Mayor.
Unbelievable, the money we threw down the drain because we were so afraid to look at something different around here. That should be a lesson that we can do things differently than what we've done for the last 100 years. It's just unbelievable to me that we waited that long. But where are we at on these municipal citations? Because I'm looking at the ones you prosecute, so obviously they wouldn't be those that prosecute, but we have 14,000, I think I read somewhere recently, traffic town citations. How long does it take to figure out where that money's going?
We have submitted 2 requests for an additional breakdown as to the tickets that are written, that are processed through. The ones that we have figures on are, of course, the ones that we're handling, that we're actually touching, that aren't paid before they reach us. So we have requested that from the court and from the clerk of court, asking for an additional breakdown, and we haven't received those numbers yet. We did it right after they were requested.
I suggest we plant somebody in that office till we get an answer, because you're talking $1 million in that deal that we're letting, I know where the money's going. It's going to the state rather than coming to the city. And we could, for all of Mr. Moore's wild proposals today, we could use that extra $1 million, so.
And the breakdown, and this information was probably provided to you previously, but the city received 90% back of the straight fine monies that are handled through the court, or at least that's the breakdown. We're
But
supposed to be getting
90%, if you figure that's $1.4 million in money. If we are supposed to get 90% of that, that's like $1.2 million and change, and we're getting 400,000.
And
So
the
somewhere
only,
there's-
I agree, there's a discrepancy there. The only thing that I can think of without seeing the numbers coming over from the state is that we do have some that don't pay for a long period of time. We have ones that are coming in that are 20 years old that people have left outstanding and
This has
until,
been ongoing for the last,
I agree.
so they're sending our money to the state and we're not getting it back.
We'll have to get the figures to substantiate that, and unfortunately, we need to get them from them. We'll have to push harder in a different direction, but we
Well,
have requested
I don't know who you
twice.
have, Bob, but every day, if you write 14,000 citations, I don't know, what is that a year, or a day, a lot, and I see them picking people up all over town finally. We're losing money every day that the clerk continues to do that to us.
40 tickets a day?
Yeah,
Nicole, the 90% you mentioned was when it's, the citation is issued as a city
That's
ordinance
correct.
violation.
Yes. Yes, so that's a simple misdemeanor
Yes.
level crime, so anything above that, the city doesn't get a share of.
But we don't know what the breakdown is on
the
how
chief
many
tells
city
me
and how
he's
many,
writing all city municipal.
all of them?
Unless there's a chance of them going to jail, he's writing them all on municipals. But the difference is, you code the city when he says like 10-321 and the state is 321. So
Yep.
the clerk's reading that 321 and sending the money to the state. You can about be assured that's what's happening. And in that process, we're losing about $100 a ticket. It's a big number.
Yeah, it could be. But because they write, like in performance measure for the PD, they say in FY19 they wrote 17,000 citations. That doesn't mean that there was a fine on all 17,000 citations, I'm sure. Some that never get that far, and some where there's a little plea bargaining going on to plead to one and let one go. And
Sure, we have some, it's probably a very small number, but we have companion charges that'll go with state charges. That when they negotiate deals, they'll try to drop off the city charges. We try to recover court costs and so forth, but
yes,
I agree, we need a better, we rely on them to provide us the statistics, and
But
I
even if they
would
plead,
like to see
you're
it.
not pleading that many.
yeah. No,
Have you talked to anyone else in the League of Cities or any other cities seeing this?
No, I just thought after a month that we'd have an answer, but we just need to get an answer. Questions for legal? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Human rights.
Good morning. Karen
morning.
Mackey, Human Rights Executive Director. You know, every year at budget time, I submit an improvement request to make our administrative secretary position full-time. And that request is then not approved to come before you. And I don't know if there's any other city department without a full-time admin or admin secretary. An organization is only as strong as its admin staff. In the last 15 years, I think we've gone through 5 secretaries and a couple of temp secretaries during that time. That's a statistic that we just can't ignore because it negatively impacts our ability to do our work. Our secretaries have all been good. They've been great people. And they had to cobble together other work in order to make ends meet. And most of it ultimately found full-time jobs elsewhere. And you know, in this economy, excuse me, it's difficult to hire, let alone retain quality staff in part-time positions. So every few years, what happens is we have to train a new staff person, which costs the city money, and it costs us precious time. We're a small staff. Losing our admin impacts our ability to provide services to the community. You know, a few months ago, we lost a part-time Spanish-speaking clerical assistant because she found full-time work elsewhere. That left us with one Spanish-speaking staff person, our admin secretary. You know, the 2010 census said that Sioux City is nearly 20% Hispanic now. We have one staff person in our office that speaks Spanish. So sometimes that means, because she only works part-time, that we have to tell people to come back. People who are at their most vulnerable, they're in distress, sometimes they're crying. And we have to explain in our broken English that Jessica is not here and you need to come back later in the day, or you need to come back tomorrow because she's had to already leave for the day because she's part-time. If we're to provide quality, cost-effective, citizen-focused, multiple municipal services, our admin position needs to be full-time. I know it's an extra $40,000. I know you're dealing with tough budget decisions, but we need that position to be made full-time. We need that so much that actually some of my commissioners got up this morning and came here to sit and listen to you and to see what we might be able to do regarding this. Do you have any questions about the budget?
Karen, why does that show .8 on the admin?
Part-time.
Yeah,
Is that how
'cause-
they make
yeah,
sure
she's
the
part-time.
Right.
And what does that break? Yeah, I was
Yes,
gonna say.
it's
how many
32 hours a week.
32.
So 8 more hours is what you're
Yes.
asking for?
Yes, ma'am.
That's another 40,000.
That's,
Because of
you gotta cover
benefits.
The health insurance,
Right.
pensions
Yep.
and all that.
Then it becomes full.
Yes, it's too bad that employers have to be in the business of providing health care.
I didn't say that. I pointed
No.
out what the cost
No,
is.
sir. I'm saying that. It's too bad because, but for that, this position would have been full-time a long time ago. I understand you're in a tough position because it is $40,000 because of the benefits.
The other thing I would ask is talk to me about your caseloads and things carrying over. I mean, you're incredibly efficient. You've worked well with interns and having people come in and things like that. I want to know, I want to be able to break down in my mind what that extra 8 hours of having that person, I totally understand the bilingual side of it.
Right.
Being able to have a person, I understand the training, the turnover, that would be extraordinarily frustrating. Talk to me about the efficiency and how that would improve your ability, because when you look at the numbers, you're doing very well. You know what I mean, with what you have. And I'm not trying to downplay the ask. I'm just, break that down for me.
On paper, it looks like we're doing okay. We're drowning. It's a triage. It's a constant triage. And having an extra person, right now, there are only 2 people that are full-time. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, when we had that last ice storm, I actually wasn't well. Staff knew I was going to come in a couple of hours late. So the other full-time position, on her way, stepped out of her door, took 2 steps, black ice, slipped, fell, hit her head, hurt her back, wasn't able to make it in all that day. Jessica then was scrambling, trying to get in early in the middle of, an inclement weather, because our other part-time staff were also struggling to get in. Now, if she'd been a full-time staff person, she'd probably been there at 7:30.
could have slipped on the ice though, too.
She could have, but as it is, she didn't get in until, I think it was 9:30. So we had no staff in our office.
When we can't control
Yeah.
No, we can't,
Yeah,
but
it's an extenuating.
But it's an ongoing problem. We have, the other positions we have are HUD funded, they're part-time. They're great people. They're college people. They're eventually going to leave. The clerical assistant positions are always cycling through. We expect that, but, having a third person that's full-time means that there's going to be more coverage for the office. It means continuity. It means not having that position cycle through constantly.
But I think Alex's question is, where's your caseload at today? Where was it a year ago?
Well, so right now, we're actually a little bit higher than this, where we have about, I think it's, last I checked, the open cases were about 24, so we're going up.
And where were you a year ago?
So fiscal year 2019, we were at 19, and 18, we were at 20, Back in 17, we were at 11. So we've been steadily going up the last couple of years. 20 doesn't sound like much unless it's your case. It is. We have people, and one of the things that happens then, people are regularly contacting us, what's the status of my case? Well, when you have to spend 15 or 20 minutes explaining to someone the status of their case, that's time you're not working on a case. And for example, Friday, that happened twice Friday. We had people calling in, what's going on with my case? I need you to talk to me in detail about what's going on with my case and why hasn't it been completed yet? Because I've been waiting 6 months. And the reality is, in the civil rights world, waiting 6 months to have a case done, that's not a lot of time, really.
And I guess my follow-up to that would be this admin secretary to get 8 more hours, are you saying would really move the needle on that?
I believe it would.
In what way?
A couple of ways. To begin with, having her there 40 hours a week. So having her there that entire time, and then in the future, being more likely to be able to retain that position. As I said, we go
The
through.
retention, I think, is is a good argument, and
Yeah.
and the retraining, the cost that goes into
Yes,
that, I
it's
understand all of that frustration. I really do, because I try to work with students that are getting
Right.
jobs
It's
and
just
offer
a-
part-time. I get that.
It's a vicious
I
cycle
just
for us.
wonder if they're there Monday through Thursday, you know what I mean? Say they're Monday through Thursday and not there Friday. I just don't know what that 8 hours, if that really would address what you're talking about. The retention side I get, but I just,
Because are they able to speak to the client,
Yes,
the admin, and explain what's going on with the cases? And they're
Yes.
qualified to do that as well as you?
yes.
Okay. And is your admin bilingual then? to
She
help
is
you with
the
that?
one bilingual staff we have.
Okay. Is it possible to get another part-time bilingual person to come in 8 hours a week to pick up for when she's not there? Then you would have.
You know,
40
I'm
hours
having a hard time just filling an internship position for the summer. With 3% unemployment, it gets really tough to hire quality part-time people because they can go elsewhere. They can get more hours. I'm having a really tough time just hiring a summer position.
What do
It
you
is-
pay the interns?
I do not know. That's something I can get back to you on. Well, the summer
If
intern,
you're asking for a full-time person, you're probably gonna have to give up some interns.
the good news about the Tyson internship program that she's taken advantage of, I think for 2 or 3 summers, however long it's been.
3.
Is not paid by us as much.
Right.
It's more from the Tyson, company that
Right, and
offsets
it's
that cost.
it's a well-paid
Yes.
position. They get $3,000 for the summer.
Yes. So
Having a
that's
hard
not
time
the
filling
city.
it.
But I don't know if you have do you have another intern that's the city? Because we have the city internship program.
I do
you
not.
utilize that, or do you just do Tyson, right?
I've just done Tyson. I have a couple of HUD-funded part-time positions.
Right, that's my
Yeah.
point. You've got some funded part-time positions. Are you willing to give any of them up?
I may have to.
Well, I guess that, for me, you'd have to come back with a proposal that tells me how you're gonna, what you're willing to give up to get, because
Or restructure, or what that would look
restructure,
like.
yeah.
Is the $40,000 figure right to go from the part-time to full-time? Is that what?
You know that, Bob? Is that
Pretty close.
Does it look like? Yeah.
It is right?
Family insurance is about 30,000 plus 8 hours,
Yeah, it'd be close to 40.
yeah.
My
Do our employees not getting any health insurance? Nope.
my other question.
Over 28 they had to or something.
Over 29.
My other question, Bob, would be, I think more for you, would just be more looking at the breakdown for other departments and secretaries and people like that of what other departments have this situation, or, because I know we've moved things around before when Jessica was kind of in that role, then Gabby, and where Ann was, or what's going on with ED, or, you know what I mean? Or is this experienced any other department to where we have a part-time?
Marty doesn't have one in his department anymore.
Yeah, and that's what I'm asking, is I just want.
We have Gabby in our department that serves ED, our office, in the council.
Yeah.
And then any other admin secretaries, other departments that yield those, or?
HR has 2 part-time admin positions. Finance really doesn't, they have an admin secretary, but she's the accounts receivable clerk. So they don't really have an admin, a person dedicated to sole admin either. What legal's doing, they'll have 1 administrative assistant left, but that person kind of serves as, writes all the resolutions, writes the contracts, reviews all the contracts. So over the past 10 years, we've really reduced the number of admin staff we have.
It used to be a dozen more back, look at your employee complement, back in the 90s, everybody had 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And even Human Rights had one 7 or 8 years ago, and then that was converted to the investigator position.
No,
Yeah, at one time you had a full-time admin assistant.
we had a full-time secretary
Yeah.
17 years ago before I came to work there. And then that position was deleted. And then about 15 years ago, we got a part-time secretary. We had a full-time investigator, and then the investigator position was actually reduced in pay range and made part-time, and then eventually came back full-time. And the part-time secretary position was really increased to 0.8, so 32 hours a week, and then eventually made an admin secretary.
Well, get us a
Anyhow.
proposal of what you can give up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to have you look at the numbers too. I look at the other side of it, and we've talked about this in the past. I've been concerned about cases that are not closed on the basis that justice delayed is justice denied. And the Human Rights Commission plays that important role. And really, your 8 hours converts to what, 3,600 hours a year? And if you could add that to the mix, I think it would be very helpful to put the Human Rights Commission back at the level where we need to. I think you've made a lot of improvements on cases carried over being reduced. And you're right, some are complicated and they take some time, but I'd still like to have that goal of cases that come in the door addressed and a decision made as quick as you can and still do justice to the facts of the case.
Yes.
It's a balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be my goal.
All right.
And,
All right.
And
Thank
for
you.
me too, just one last thought that I would just say is just looking at the restructuring of that. You know what I mean? For me, it's not just like, oh, you have to cut here in order to add here. Like, give the proposal of, I really think with a full-time person that would be adequately trained, we could not only reduce the cases, but also have them work on this or do that. Because you do a lot of community events. I hope I'm not coming down hard. Like, I'm just trying to brainstorm with you because I think that you do a lot as far as community events, activism, outreach, all of that, and working with the Tyson internship program. The students that I talk to that have interned there with the Tyson program, I mean, they get extraordinary experience. So keep that up. I just wonder if we restructure, we can get you that full-time equivalent, just what that would equate to.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Art Center.
Need that by Thursday too, wouldn't we?
Yes.
Because we're doing a wrap-up. Yeah.
Todd Barron, Sioux City Arts Center. The budget for FY21 is pretty much a continuation of our current budget. Only significant changes are reductions in expenses for both the Arts Center building and the Gilchrist Learning Center due to utilities costs that have been reduced recently. So the utilities cost proposed for FY21 reflect probably about the last 20 months or so of expenses we've incurred. Any other questions?
Questions?
Had a couple. I wanted to find my figures first. Yeah, here we go. I was looking at just your numbers and your figures and in your new role and things like that. I was really just brainstorming while I was reading this of what your vision is to move the needle for attendance and everything else, what we could do differently. Like, The thing that I really felt when I was reading through this is if we just remain status quo, I think you don't really see changes and you don't progress in the way you want to. And I think that you bring a new, exciting energy to the position. You know, you have that experience. I'm looking forward to what you can do. But a couple things that I was just looking at is just looking at attendance and how we're going to continue pushing that. You know, we do a ton of collaboration already. And then the other thing that I would just want you to touch on that I question is just attendance with Art Splash. I want to have a better figure than that. You know, I mean, I wish there was a way to quantify, you know, what we're doing rather than just saying 17K plus. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's just such a, I don't know. It just doesn't seem accurate. And that bothers me when it's like, well, year to year, you can't just say, well, we had this plus, this plus.
It's true. Yeah, just addressing that first. It's a little tough with Art Splash with 3 different entrances, and people do go in and out. If you buy a wristband, you know, you're it's hard to measure, but I think there are pretty simple ways where we could at least, we usually have, we always have volunteers who are at those gates. Seems easy enough to have one person who's doing his or her best to click in some numbers, just so we can get at least a ballpark sense in that way.
I just think like it would be beneficial to, there are, but then people come in and out. Yeah, I don't know if you can count those. I just want to quantify it because it's like, gosh, if we can grow that event, or if you say we need to move, I know we're looking at down the road, moving downtown. Well, how much space do we really need? Or, you know, future on the riverfront, what are you looking at for parking? How to anticipate those things, we really have to have some type of idea.
Right, and just in terms of thinking about how we're doing as a festival over the years, even if the number we get by doing some actual counting, even if it's not perfectly accurate, at least if we have the consistent way of tracking it, we can see how that perhaps inaccurate way trends over the years. In terms of your bigger questions at the beginning, you know, I'm still pretty fresh. But one of the things that I discussed with the trustees during the interview process, and something that we will be working towards, is you mentioned collaborations. We do some, but I am really interested in reaching out much more broadly. Our collaborations have come in the past when outside organizations have come to the Art Center to see how we can work together. We haven't done anything to really initiate those projects.
Be proactive,
Exactly. That's something that's really important. Hopefully in the process of hiring a curator right now, and that is, when I've been interviewing the candidates, that's something I'm putting at the very top of my questions about their experience in not just putting up exhibitions and celebrating them and letting them sit there, but how are we reaching out to engage the community? And again, that's not just simply through promotional efforts, it's through going out and coming up with programs that might be off-site, programs working with organizations that do tangential programs that can allow us to expand what we do, but also benefit those organizations.
And I think, too, the public art projects that you're working on, like look at Sculpt Siouxland, we need to continue those partnerships to bring art outside of the Art Center. So I don't want to take more time, Mayor. If you can keep thinking about that, I think I would urge.
Yeah, things have been running really well at the Art Center, but it is time to try to shift gears.
Especially with that significant investment of Gilchrist, the new learning center, all that.
Exactly.
$2,500 to maintain the statues or art outside, the sculptures outside of the Martin Luther King. Had I known that, I probably would have been a little bit more hesitant to ask that group to raise some sort of an endowment, because I don't think any of us knew we were going to be spending $2,500 a year for maintaining those sculptures. That wasn't what we signed on for.
To be honest, I think that arrangement was set up maybe towards the end of last calendar year.
So what are we spending $2,500 on?
It's that budget is in there just to I think last year there were some issues that we had to address.
Mayor, there were
we
some
worked with the artists.
vandalization on a couple of the statues that they had to repair, and they were quite expensive. The bronze,
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it is,
was
but
about $2,400 to repair the statues. And, I mean, the hope is that wouldn't continue to happen, but this is just
well,
in
the
preparation.
problem
that
when
it-
you have an art center board, and don't take this the wrong way, but if it gets in their budget and they don't spend it, it never comes back to the city. So I would like to somehow just earmark that to be used only for that.
Okay.
And I'm not being critical of your board, but I know how this program works around here. It should be only if needed, and move that to the city council budget or something. That way, if it's not spent, it's not spent.
That was my understanding, was that I mean, that wouldn't be something that we could.
But that's not how it works in the
Okay.
art center. You guys, goes to you, and
And then
Is that
it's
where-
discretion.
you can move it to somewhere else if you choose to.
Okay.
So that wouldn't be a carryover number? Not
Well, they
not-
spent
not
it last year. They didn't have money and they spent
Oh,
it.
they spent the entire 25?
Right. This is the first
To
year we put it
repair.
in. I understand.
To repair.
If we're responsible for maintenance, I get that we need to maintain them. I don't have I wish we would have known that, but anyway, I just don't want it to be spent somewhere else. If we're designating it for that, then I want it to be spent for that or not spent at all, so.
Okay,
Is everybody okay with that? Okay, all right, thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Next up is the library. We have Sarah. Helen's out at a library convention. Sarah's the operations manager.
Good morning.
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 Morning. We didn't really have any big changes in this new budget, but we did ask for a $4,500 improvement for leasing 13 computers through CMG that were on old systems, and we had to get on to Windows 10, and so we could run Office 365. So that's the only improvement that we asked for.
It's like 106,000 though, for, what is that for? Because that's what. only-
Personnel.
For
I
what?
think personnel was our,
No, well, I don't know, it says Wilbur, so it's 106,000 for more additional people, or because of the cost of the deal?
yeah, just standard increases with personnel.
How could it be 106,000?
They did have, looks like they had insurance, allocations of insurance.
You're looking at the Wilbur House, right, Mayor?
Yeah, but, yeah. $1,000,003.
While he's looking at that or kind of crunching some of those numbers, one other thing, I just wanted to touch on two different things. I really appreciate in 2019 the improvement of the wireless internet and that usage. I think that number signifies, that we really need to keep updating that.
I agree.
I think that's pretty incredible to see an uptick in 75% over the previous year. I think that's pretty great. So thank you for doing that. The only other thing that I would ask is, and it's just because I see it happen out at Morningside, that branch all the time, is the collaboration with using the food trucks out there. And I think my question would be, Bob, and maybe it's not at his level, maybe it's at your guys' level, just collaborating with them. Do we charge any rent for that or anything?
Well, we
For
don't control the parking lot at Morningside, actually. It's,
Oh, is that the
Monette.
commercial club?
No, it's parking.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Because I just want to collaborate and keep doing that or seeing what we can
I don't believe we charge any rent.
No,
But then who controls that? We do?
Public Works, but or parking, but I don't think anybody controls.
I think the
They
food
just
trucks-
set up
We
and go.
maintain it, though.
Well, and the reason I ask is because one of them said that they wanted to change a different day, or they wanted to go there a different day to offer it because Thursdays didn't work for their schedule, and they were denied and said that they couldn't set up any shop there on Wednesdays.
Guess I could find out. I'm unaware who would have denied that to them.
And
Well, I think
I
it's
didn't know
Monette.
if it was true. I'm not saying it is true, but.
I think it's Monette is who's in charge of it.
I don't think she's monitoring food trucks. I'll find out.
It's just a question I had, because I really think that's a win-win. I mean, more people are in your parking lot, right around the library, your staff, people around that area, like, whether it's downtown or at the Morningside branch. I just think that that's a win-win, and if we continue to push those things.
Yeah, we like
I
it
think
too.
I think you get people just stopping in, you know what I mean? Like, hey, then I'm in the library, I'm gonna return a book, or I'm gonna go get a book.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we were open to that.
Other questions? Kate?
Thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
to the museum next.
Steve Hansen, Museum, page 199.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Leap year and everything, so. Budget's pretty status quo. The only couple things that I'd mention, I would say that, as you know, the last couple of years, we've been having the partnership with the school district after the school district purchased the building, and it changed some of our cost structures. And the only thing that I'd be a little leery of on this budget, and we'll see, is the caveat, is the utilities. You notice that for next year is dropped dramatically, which could be a good thing. But if we get into a bad winter, don't be surprised if I come back and all of a sudden we exceed that. So, but right now, I mean, we're doing well, and the anticipated savings from the New Deal is we've realized those. And the only other thing is, as you may or may not be aware of or remember, there's a 55-45 cost share on some of the repairs of the building that are relevant to us. So something like that, if the roof goes bad or something like that. But the roof overall is in pretty good shape, so I think we're sitting pretty good. And
Wasn't
I
that
think,
with the HVAC too, or just other?
the HVAC,
Yeah, it would have been the same.
that would be
down.
55-45 on those parts that are relevant to
Yeah,
us,
yeah, to both areas.
which would be the chillers and the boilers.
You'll have more time. Not you.
I'm trying to keep you on time here, Mayor.
No, it's a different deal. I'll tell you later. Okay, anything else?
I
for
like
the-
your shirt, but
Yeah, anything else for the? We cut your salary if you win that race?
do we have what?
Can we cut your salary if we?
It would be reduced somewhat,
That'll
absolutely.
cover the utilities.
Yeah. Or maybe you could put it towards exhibits and education. So.
Hey, there you go. There you
Just
go,
saying,
Right away now.
you notice there isn't a line item for that, so.
Yeah, you're gonna be like that art center. Once you get it, you're not giving it back, so.
You know, you just taught me something a little while ago. I was like, really, I didn't know we could do that. Thank you, Mayor. 'Cause
You know-
we give our money back, so.
Yeah, you know how it works. All right, we're going to the comm center next.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Page 349, WIC Communication Center, Glenn Sadovy.
Good morning, Glenn Sedovey, Communications Director.
Well, that's a nice looking shirt you got there. 911 pay for that, or?
Right out of my billfold.
Looks good.
You gotta let 911 pay for some of that stuff. We can get that done at Climbing Hill some night.
Exactly.
They have 911 golf balls?
Oh my gosh, yeah, exactly.
Here we go.
Dan will get a line item for that.
Well, the 911 budget, or the communications budget, actually, we're reducing $54,985 from the current budget. I think we're in good shape. This past year, we've had a lot of accomplishments. We replaced and upgraded all of our dispatch workstations funded by the 911 Service Board. We passed our online files accreditation through CLIA this past couple months. We're at full staff, even though we're still in training with two of the new staff members, which will take 2 to 3 months to get them fully up and running on their own. But as far as our department, I think we're in good shape.
Do you think that all the improvements will, because I know you have turnover in your department.
We've had
It's a
some.
high-stress job, but
The
unlike
latest-
the guy that's going to speak after you, you actually do have stress in your life. So, do you think that's helped? I mean, the atmosphere seems to be more pleasant than it's ever been out there
Yeah.
as far as the actual environment.
The actual turnover lately, we actually had an operator move, or is moving to Kansas with her husband, took a job down there, so that the changeover hasn't been so much.
Good.
Leaving because of the stress or the job itself. It's been relocation, and then the latest hire was because we were authorizing another position under the current budget. So.
Good.
Unless you have any questions about the budget.
Questions?
None.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
No, we'll keep going. I don't want to keep a high-priced guy like.
Okay, next up is WIC IT, page 355, John Malloy.
He might have a fourth-grade basketball game he's got a ref today, so let's get it.
Tell them that's not so.
It is not so, Mayor.
Yeah, that's right.
You moved up to seventh grade this year?
No, regional district finals.
Yeah. Keep fooling them, Mayor, so.
No, the good ones rise to the top. Don't
George Davidson was out of town, so. All right, what do you got
Well,
today?
I'd like to make a formal request for customized shirts in our department.
Yeah, right.
Pay for them yourself.
Okay, got it. We are doing something, again, I'm really optimistic about this coming year. We are doing something different than we have in the last million years. We're looking at integrating the city phone system, or at least partial city phone system, into the comprehensive network, so I'm excited about that. We're looking at repurposing a position, worked with the manager's office on that as well. Emphasis on data security, so that's an exciting development for us. Doing a pen test. As you can see, there's a security theme to many of the things we're doing. So again, and that's reflective in this budget.
So your IT specialist is becoming security coordinator?
That's the goal, yes.
Yeah, I think it's a good change in implementing good strategies and everything else. I mean, today's climate, I think that especially with the data that we have, and especially our citizens, need to be as safe as possible. So continuing on those means and implementing these processes and systems, I think will be a good thing, and continuing to stay at the forefront will be really important.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Well, what's this Tyler system?
What is that?
Yeah.
The county implemented a new financial and real estate system for multiple offices.
Where are you at, Mayor?
I know it's a county deal, but I'm just,
Where are you at? Well,
we're still paying for it as city taxpayers.
Well, yeah,
114,000 in software maintenance based on current software costs on page 358.
that's a county reimbursement.
Yep, we get a reimbursement.
I understand that, but the last time I paid my property tax bills on all my properties, it had a county tax in there. And I want to make sure that they're spending those dollars wisely. So what does it do? Because it's a big part of your increase. You don't have one without that.
Yeah, and I'd let Dennis and Michelle and Pat explain that on the county side as far as the improvements that they're experiencing with that system. It was time for an upgrade. I don't dispute that. I think it was a good move on their part. So I know there's a number of efficiencies, and as far as real-time
Well, then
data.
let's go to yours. What's the $47,000 request for a third-party risk assessment? How are you going to pick that consultant? Because I already know, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to tell me how that's going to be a fair and RFP proposal, or you already have somebody picked?
No, we went out to a couple vendors and just got a ballpark price on what a pen test would be. So
And what will I gain by that as a taxpayer in Sioux City, Iowa?
you'll get an independent third-party assessment of where our risk is at as far as our internet-facing systems and
just where our vulnerabilities are.
yeah. Again, I know we were hit up here in the last couple of days again with the third-party event that we had with our credit card payment system. So again, when anything is internet facing, we have an exposure. And
Absolutely, I agree.
so somebody other than us looking at it inside, it's a whole different perspective,
Okay,
the way third parties look at it, so.
okay then.
We'll try to make it less than that, though. That's
Let's
the
do,
goal.
let's do that. And then you don't get to keep it either. It comes back to the city.
Or goes to the art center, so.
I know you're one of those guys, so.
Or you get a shirt, one or the other. Get
Thanks,
some
John.
Okay, thanks, guys.
It's always good to see you on a Saturday morning.
Next up, Human Resources, page 167, Janelle Bertrand.
We'll break after that.
Hey, look at that. Flipped right to it, boss.
Good morning, Janelle
Good
Bertrand,
morning.
Human Resources Director.
Morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. So when are you hiring the safety director?
It's been posted, I think Monday. Will be advertised for 30 days, so probably as soon as the day that the person retires, shortly thereafter. That's when the funding will be free.
And what's the anticipated cost of that employee?
I believe it is an S19, which I'm not sure what the minimum is. 69 maybe? Is that it? I don't have the pay grade right in front of me. It will be lower than what the current incumbent is.
And you think rather than doing a private contractor, that'll be more cost-effective and more will be accomplished?
I think having one on site, we have an organization of around 900 people.
I know.
think it is an area that we definitely need to have attention to. We've made great strides. We are lacking in training. This person will be doing some training on site for the employees, making more consistent site visits, doing incident review when there's accidents. Having that availability will be right here will be more advantageous to us.
Well, I hope that's the case, because sometimes we hire these people and they forget that they have to leave the office. And they take the training, which should be serious, but actually driving out in the field and seeing if your people are working safe
Absolutely.
is a lot more important to me than, because most of our employees have a basic understanding just from working in the field what safety's about, but the problem is in the heat of the battle in a water break or construction, or, where concrete heaves and that, they are forced to sometimes forget what they've been taught. And I don't want them to forget what they've been taught, even if it takes longer to get that street open. Their safety. So I want to make sure that when there is a water main break, that person's out there on occasion, not just sitting in the office. And
Mayor, we agree with you. Rick Mock is serving that function now, and some of the things that he does that we're looking to expand upon is he does unannounced visits. There's safety issues related to emergencies, as you allude to, but there's also just day-to-day things. Over the past 2 weeks, I've had him go out to all our field offices and just do an unannounced inspection, which has resulted in, we then generate letters and we give people 2 weeks to follow up on how they're going to correct those things. This would expand upon that to include training and other things that, while Rick is doing a good job, his sole focus isn't necessarily on that.
Right.
In the posting, it indicates that the majority of time this person will be out in the field. 75% I anticipate.
But that doesn't matter if you don't enforce it.
I understand.
So.
And if we track that, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's the big thing too, is looking at tracking and setting goals and how often do you want to be out there, just like what Bob is talking about right now, you know what I mean? And quantifying how many times were you out there, how many different trainings, how many times was he with Chris and the crew or otherwise, you know what I mean? Being able to really give feedback and what happened with that feedback or where it went.
Right.
The other question I had,
No, go ahead.
The other question that I had was, how is the online application system? I know you were working on streamlining a lot of different things. How do you feel that's going? And do you have the resources? What are the stumbling blocks of that? I mean,
Right.
how is that going? I think it's cumbersome, or it was, you know.
It was. It's working very, very well. As you can see, I think there's numbers in here. We have taken over 1,000 applications this year than we did the previous year. It definitely is helpful for my staff. I've heard feedback from supervisors, the hiring authorities, that it's easy to use. They can see the resumes and the applications right there. We do need to expand on some of the functionality of it. It's just a matter of getting some time to do that.
The wellness contract up for bid this year?
Yes.
When will that be bid?
It's at legal right now for
Is that the
review.
Share Nurse program? Is that wellness or,
Yeah, the Share Nurse.
and then what's the other one we have?
That's up for bid now? Or the other wellness?
Yeah, what's the other thing we bid that Mercy has both of them?
That's the-
Testing?
No, Mercy has the wellness, the portal for the
And the E-
points. They have that one, and then the
EAP?
and EAP, they were just awarded right now.
They were what?
Mercy was just awarded the EAP.
Did we
Con-
vote on that?
No, it has, does
It's-
it have to come back to council?
Yes,
still? Yeah.
the attorneys are going back and forth on the contract.
Did anybody else bid it?
Yes, there were, I want to say 2 others,
Just for the EAP only?
just for EAP,
What's EAP?
Employee
Employee
Assistance
Assistance
Program.
Counseling.
Do we utilize that a lot?
Yeah, we do, more
Through
than you think.
management referrals?
Not as many as just employee self-referrals, but we have used it for management referrals.
I'm such a believer in that.
Yeah, it's a good tool.
Janelle, one thing I wanted to bring up, and I'll just bring up while we're here with council and you, and I don't know if it's the right time, but I want it looked into. I talked with a member of your staff about it as well. It's brought to my attention, I think the Roth is a great addition and being able to do that, but I think that there is just way too many options for people to go into, you know what I mean? And if we put that out to bid and used one company like other major companies have done, and the private sector has done, go ahead, do you have something?
Mayor and council, working with finance, the treasurer, and Janelle.
Yeah.
With the replacement of our finance director, we've decided to wait to get through budget before we focus. I don't know we're ever going to get to a point where we're going to have a single provider of deferred comp, but we want to streamline the number significantly. Right now, an employee can show up with their uncle who's a 457 provider, and we will add them.
Yeah.
We want to streamline it to 3 to 5. And the primary reason for that is we have 3 right now very large 457 providers, and one, we don't want to force somebody out of something that they've had for a long period of time. What we'll probably do is say certain plans, people that are in them can stay in them, but we won't let anybody enroll into new plans and streamline it that way.
So do we have like Aflac and Colonial in that? We don't, do we?
I believe Transit has Aflac. Or so-
I don't understand, again, around here, I didn't understand why we didn't have a Roth 401K. It made no sense to me. Everybody in the world's had them for 10 years. I don't understand why we don't have Aflac or
Certain departments.
well, they negotiated it.
Right, they
Transit,
did.
I remember that. Why we don't have that kind of stuff available to our employees, I don't understand it. Is it that difficult in finance to get that done?
Well, and
It's a benefit that
I was gonna
every
say,
employer
and
in
I don't
America
know about that. I'm just saying, I just want to streamline that. And
Yeah,
the person
we
that I
do
was talking
too.
to in your office, my thing is even if you have 3 to 5 or whatever that is, I still think that it's frustrating, or you know what I mean? That it's like what her and I were talking about, because I just use the example of what I have at Morningside. You have one provider, you get to choose your options, how you want to invest, what you want to do, what you want to match.
Right.
And then especially when you do training, onboarding, you know what I mean? Like that's what I think a lot about is, okay, well, you have one representative coming there to meet with your employees or to do the onboarding training. If you have to offer that for 3 to 5 services, that in itself is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas if you have one and you say, here are all your different options, look at the wellness fair that we had. You know what I mean? Like, what, you're going to have 15
Right.
booths for people that all are, I mean, to your point, and I'm glad that you're looking into it. I'm not discounting that. 3 to 5 is a light years ahead, I think, of where we
Yeah.
are. But I
How
still
many
think
do we have?
you put
I
it
think
out
we
to
have
an
9
RFP.
right now.
Put it out to an RFP and get the best rate or get the best service.
And we will discuss that, like Bob said, we just want to get through budget and.
Yeah.
But
I
absolutely.
get that. I'm glad that there's
Yep.
movement.
We have, out of the 9, I think we have 2 primary providers right now. But our goal is to get it streamlined down to where new employees pick A or B, or maybe it's even A. We just don't want to penalize people that are currently in the various funds and have been for, 20 years.
And I don't know how.
Try to make them move out.
goes. Yeah, exactly. I don't know how you phase in, but, okay.
And I think some of that is a carryover. Before we matched deferred comp, it was truly their money, so I think, and I wasn't here yet, but I think the decision was made, if it's their money, they can invest as they want.
Yeah.
But over time, it's become a lot of work as we now match deferred
And
comp.
nightmare for you, I'm sure.
How
we don't
is
do
it
it
that, on the deferred comp subject, I'll ask this, how is it you can discriminate against council members and not match when all the other departments get that match?
Mayor, I can try to answer that. Your salary is set by ordinance, and it says
Not a
what your
salary,
total
Bob.
compensation is.
That's not a salary. But
I know.
anyway,
Okay.
I mean, I'll go back to when I served on the council the last time. John Myers told me I couldn't be covered by IPERS, which was an absolute lie. So for 12 years, I sit here thinking I couldn't be covered by IPERS, for 12 years. And actually, I had to sign off to be exempt from IPERS. That's the way it works, otherwise you're assumed to be covered. But nobody can show me the paper that I signed off on to this day, because it doesn't exist. So I'm just saying, when it comes to council members, you have an obligation to explain to new council members what their benefits are, that we do a horrible job on. We do a great job of taking them around, showing them sewer plants and all that stuff. But when it comes to their actual benefits, I mean, I didn't know I was getting a paycheck the first week I served back in the 80s. I didn't even know we got paid, to tell you the truth.
I believe Janet spent
that?
time with Alex when you
Yeah.
started and with
Well,
Julie when
we
she
didn't
first
do
started.
it, we didn't do it when I came back, even though I'd served. Things changed in
That was-
14 years.
Well, that was before me. That's what I'm trying to say.
I'm just
Sorry.
saying that we
Janet
need
did
to
spend
do a
quite a bit
better
of time
job. with that.
and answered all my questions.
I'm going to open my mouth here, but I think, Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the first things we did after she was elected is we had her come in and explain benefits to her.
I'm
And
just
I almost
telling you, that didn't
fainted.
happen when I came back 8 years ago.
Would you like us to do it now?
No.
Yeah, exactly. If you have his number, schedule an appointment.
I think it's terribly important you do. Seriously,
It
when
is.
I got elected, I didn't know I was gonna get a paycheck, and back then, somehow you only had to serve a day if the payday was on Friday. If you got sworn in on Tuesday and payday was Friday, you got paid right then.
Yeah, because you get paid by the month.
Right.
And so if you work that day in the month, you get it.
But you don't get one on the way out the door then either.
We're trying,
You don't get a-
We make every effort to reach out to you.
So, I'm just saying that we need to do a better job with new council members. That's all I'm saying in the future. Because I don't think, I didn't know first couple years I could even have deferred comp. Those sort of things, nobody ever bothered to tell us.
Well, I would appreciate feedback from Julie and Alex then if we were lacking somewhere,
So,
so we can improve our services.
all right, other questions?
Sounds
Yep.
good. Thanks.
Let's take a break real quick, huh? I knew you were ready. I could tell. You were getting nervous. Where'd Bob go?
Good morning,
Events
everybody.
facilities,
Morning.
page 115.
Took a break, huh? Nope, sorry.
Good morning, Tim.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Tim Savona with the Tyson Event Center and Orpheum Theater, Spectra Venue Management. Our budget, as you have seen,
Yeah, good. As long as it's not the 12.
little unique with us. We present a budget for the operating side based on contractual obligations and things of that sort. Try to identify added revenues, new event contact, efficiency opportunities and such. And then that obviously gets combined with things on the city side. So we have been continuing to work through how this is presented, and the last couple weeks have been very beneficial. I guess I'll just ask.
Why is it going up $333,000?
I knew you'd say that.
Well, I mean, you guys got hired to lower.
Hold on.
Lower the subsidy, and now it's going up.
The budget that was presented last year, there was a miscommunication between the two entities. We have been in contact with the city from the first day I arrived here a year ago. We actually presented a budget that's more in the 1.5 range. And that's what we've been going on to work off of this year with the support of city finance. This is, again, dating back 6 to 9 months. Essentially, if you look at FY18 versus FY19, a budget improvement of over $1 million never should have been presented or accepted. And it was just a genuine miscommunication between, I wasn't here, so I can't speak fully to it, but the information that was presented and then how the information was utilized and combined. Excuse me. So the actual budget that we've been operating off of from our end this year, it's 1,267. And so this is actually a $67,000 improvement from our end. And unfortunately, this is kind of a growing kind of pain, if you will, as we work to enhance and improve the communications between how this all rolls between public, private, and combination thereof. Did I kind of tackle that okay, Teresa, you think?
Yes. And this, when you see the next year's budget, that'll kind of work itself out as you'll see an actual, which will be more in line with their current budget they're working off of.
Our FY19.
I think when we got sold Spectra, thought we were going to have $1 million subsidy.
Well, our budget when we arrived was 1.6 million, and that was what we were presented, and we're presenting a budget of 1.2. So we're making positive strides.
I'm not going to argue about it. I don't know how come we were sold $1 million and it's still $1.2 million. I don't get that.
The contract is written to provide for an incentive to reduce the subsidy, and I think the $1 million projected was by the 5th year.
Yeah, I mean, we're in our second year right now. And by the way, we're having a really good year.
I was going to say, the other thing that I take into account is I look at, let me get to the right, and this was a suggestion I was going to have. I really highlighted this sense. The keys to our success will be to consistently improve our guests' experience, increase our market size through group sales, marketing activities, increase event attendance, and revenue while balancing these items with fiscal responsibility. That's why it's like I try not to just look at, oh, are you at the million? It has to be at the million. I'm only happy if it's at the million. That's not where I'm trying to look at overall experience. I spend a lot of time at your venues and our venues, the ones you guys are managing, and I see the difference that are being made. I see the sponsorships and some of those changes. I want to continue seeing that. I see the events that we're bringing. I see the attendance, the feel. I hear from the acts, as far as their user experience. I just don't want us to only look at that financial responsibility. I think we need to look at overall goal while keeping in mind
So do I,
taxpayer
Alex,
dollars.
but we haven't had the concerts that we were promised. You can argue that you have, but you have not. Were you here when we hired them?
Yeah.
Because we were promised a lot of concerts, and that's the one complaint, Tim, I get in this community.
But how have they not had the concert? That's what I would say.
I mean, I think I'm prepared to identify 5 years of history, and this last year and the current year is tenfold improved. And it's not all about concerts.
I'm not gonna.
I know, but this is an important platform to address this.
It's not tenfold improved. It's not, Tim.
Okay, I can show you.
Show me.
I will.
yeah, show me.
Because I was gonna say.
If you count
another-
Lost 80s Live as a concert and you want to compare it to Brad Paisley and Kiss, I mean, that's the conversation we're having right now. So,
Are we making money on them?
well,
So
that was the point I was going to make.
Are we getting the concerts that people are buying?
Well, are
Lose
people
money on
buying
every
concerts?
concert. We lose.
Are
money on
people
every
buying
concert.
concerts is the
That's
better
what their
question.
job is, Alex. That's not my job. That's where they're the professionals.
And what I am saying is we would be losing even more if we didn't have them. It's people, we need people to buy tickets.
That's, yeah.
We
I
lose
mean,
money on every concert.
We have not always lost money on it.
Well, I mean, we do now.
Yeah.
There's a lot in the conversation, and what I can tell you is that when we were hired, and again, I wasn't part of the pitch, I don't know how many shows were promised, but we said we'd improve and enhance corporate sales. We've grown over $150,000 of new revenue. We are now privately managed versus city managed. We've incurred 7% enhanced sales tax, right? So I'm saying these results are actually even better than they may appear on paper. We have many annual events, long-time terms, contracts, things of that sort. They trend in ways that we cannot control. So we have to be constantly making up for all these things. Getting events back like WWE, getting Paw Patrol here this weekend, these are monumental accomplishments and huge for our community and for finances. So it's not all about a concert.
Did you get WWE?
We had WWE last year in April, yes. They were here. And they're on the calendar. Well, we're hoping to get them back again. We have holds for them. Holds can change.
I thought they canceled.
They had one canceled.
That was the second time they tried to come back too soon. Yes, they were here in April. The concerts we are having, if you look at the last 12 months, you have Breaking Benjamin, you have Kelsey Ballerini, you have the WWE show, you have Brad Paisley, you have Chris Young, you have a Bret Michaels show, you have Kiss. Compare that to however many years prior, and there might be one resonating name that jumps out. Another important piece is that the industry changes. And when you say we haven't always lost money, you're right, but 10 years ago in the business, it's a completely new game right now, a completely different game. Every single day it changes. I've been in it 13 years, and it's changed monumentally since then. You don't get to rent your building anymore, right? It's just the way these things work. So
You don't get to what, Tim?
rent your building.
Oh.
So it's just part of the process and evolution, if you will. And I think what we're seeing and what you'll see right now, I mean, our current year's budget, we're $90,000 ahead of budget pace, which is a good sign. But we have to see two things. We have to continue to bring the content, but we need to be able to sell the tickets. When you look at a show like Kiss, you know, we sold $125,000 more than the last time they were here. So that's an enormous improvement in trend. That doesn't mean it gets us to just magically hit, you know, some numbers on a budget. So we're well aware of the expectations and the priorities. We feel it more than anybody. But it's bigger than just, you know, and what's a magic number, right? I mean, if we're doing 6 to 8 concerts a year, what do we want? Do we want 12? Do we want 15?
I don't know. I want you to go back to what you promised when you came.
I think we're on our way towards that promise.
Your guy Tom stood there and told us everything, and we'd make money on concerts, and anybody that tells me I'm not telling the truth, then I'm going to get the tape for you.
And I'll add, too, the Orpheum's on pace right now, having one of their better years that they've had in a long time.
I'm not talking about the Orpheum. I have no
I understand, but it's part of our duties as well.
No, I'm not. I didn't say one word about the Orpheum. I'm talking about what promises were made at that microphone by your guy out of Philadelphia. And they're not coming true. They're not.
I can't speak to that. I don't know what those promises were. I think we're making great progress, and I would advise that, you know, we're in a far better position, you know, with us than on your own. We're together in this. And
Well,
if
it's
we're gonna-
terribly disappointing that we didn't know, and this council didn't know, that budget was $1.2 million last year to me.
Well, yeah, and I can show you what we presented to the finance, and it shows a 1.2. But I think if you look at those trends year over year, I mean, if you look back another year and another year, it looks like we're on the right path.
And the number of events, everything else. Yeah, I think there's a lot of benchmarks you can look to.
Yeah, the number of events are growing. I mean, we're busy right now. We're really busy. We've had 4 different events in 7 days. It's good. It's really good. And I welcome anybody to come out anytime and walk through some of this stuff.
I was
Always
going to say,
available.
that's the other thing I would urge all of council is I'm a big fan of being proactive and giving constructive feedback. You know what I mean? If any member on the council is unhappy with something, guess what? I texted you,
Alex,
Tim.
it doesn't
I
do
texted
any
Tim.
good because you guys all believe they're doing such a great job, but I sit in my office, I go to the Sioux City Journal editorial board, and I get ripped all the time about it.
Because everyone thinks that it should be this big, easy thing where, oh, you bring this concert, like, look at
That's
Brad
what
Paisley.
they got hired to do. They are the ones that stood there and made the promises. Were you here when Tom stood up there?
Yes.
Okay, what did he promise? Subsidy would go down dramatically?
And hasn't went down?
And no, it hasn't gone down. It was 1.25 million, it's 1.238. You call that a great reduction?
No, they're talking about the increase in shows and other things as well. I'm saying that
I'm
we need
talking-
to look at other factors.
What they promised us was a reduction in the subsidy, and that's not happened.
I don't know the timeline of the promises either. And look, I think we're on a path here. I think we're going the right direction. I think, we had identified 3 ways we'd do it, corporate sales, operational efficiencies, and events. Not just big concerts, but events. And all 3 of those categories, we're clicking with a really big check mark right now, a big one. And I can walk through every single piece of them.
You need to go to the Journal editorial board because they have a lot of doubts about it.
I understand, and unfortunately, things are, I'll hold back, but our phone is always available for a conversation. We're trying to focus on what we do day to day, and if somebody wanted to talk to us, we'd be more than willing to sit down and engage in this conversation.
Yeah, I think the negativity just
And
starts on a multitude of different levels, and then it just spirals.
I don't buy that, Alex. The subsidy isn't going down. You can blame me, and you can say I'm starting that, but I'm not the one that promised the subsidy would go down. They promised it.
Am I reading this accurately, the last 4 years of numbers? I mean, what have they been for the subsidy of our facility?
And the 2.9 can't be right either, by the way, so, again, it doesn't matter. I look at Kinseth, and I'm thinking now those guys have made great progress. And I wasn't a fan of theirs either, by the way, as you remember. But they've made great progress, and you got to give due where it's due, and they've done a good job of monitoring the costs over there, so. Any other questions?
We'll continue to look at the progress, though, Mayor.
No, we won't.
Well, and the other thing I would just say,
But that's okay.
I just think that's such a horrible attitude to have about it. I think what I would really
I got a horrible attitude because it's my money. I pay taxes. I have a right to, when somebody says they're going to lower something.
No, I understand.
Okay, well, don't say I have a horrible attitude. I want them to do what they said they would do, lower the subsidy.
And I understand it. I'm just saying, if we would encourage our staff or encourage them, hey, I think we need to be doing this, or what if we tried this, rather than just tearing people down and saying you're doing horrible,
I don't know what to tell him to do. That's he's the expert. If I knew, I would make suggestions to him.
I think the bottom line is the subsidy is trending the right way. Is it at a level and a variance that pleases you? Obviously, that's not the case, but we are going the right direction. It is going the right way. Maybe it's going slower than expected. We made a 5-year commitment to be at $1 million. I mean, let's see how we finish this year. This is our first real year of shot, and we're having a great year. But we're trending the right way, and it is decreasing. Let's see what that gap is when the year ends.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.
Hey,
Thank you.
You guys have a great rest of the day.
Yeah.
Here from the convention center.
Are they here?
Yep.
Convention center.
Yep, Kansas for the convention center. Yep. Allow Mark.
I think he's been here during operating, right?
Yep, this is Mark.
You were here for operating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been here before, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and introduce for the public.
So my name is Mark, and I'm with Kinseth in the Convention Center and the soon-to-open courtyard. We are being very aggressive for next year for our proposed budget and only looking for a $103,000 subsidy from the city. I actually think that we should definitely hit that number with the hotel opening actually rather quickly, so which is good news.
Not soon enough, man.
Not
When is
soon
it
enough,
opening?
but It's
Yeah, do
looking
you have a
like
date?
it'll be between the 17th and the 23rd of March. So it's coming right up. Next week, we put furniture in the lobby, and Julie was nice enough to come for a tour yesterday and saw the building, so.
And it couldn't have been 2 weeks earlier and had
Right.
NAIA there or anything.
Right. So, but we are doing our part with NAIA. We still are sponsoring a team,
Yeah.
you know, and doing that kind of stuff. So we really wish we could have had them in our facility. We had big plans for,
Hundreds of
NAIA.
people, though, working as
yeah.
hard as they, yesterday, it was just amazing to be in there and watch them all collectively trying
Yeah.
to get it done.
Just to get the building finished, so.
But
they
then you have
ran
an
into-
inspection after that, right?
Then what?
From Marriott itself?
I didn't hear you.
You have an inspection once the furnishings and everything are set in place?
Correct. Brian Wu from Marriott will be there on Thursday. So, and after Brian arrives, then it should be a week later that we have the trainers from Marriott, because you have to go through an extensive on-hands training program with them before your doors even open. So the building will actually sit empty and be completely ready to go while the trainers are in the building.
So it's not just let the paint dry, then open the door, it's
Right,
complete the
like
process?
my last property that I opened with IHG, they wheeled the last toolbox out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were open for business. So it's not that way with Marriott. So, but yeah, we have a lot of new things on the books coming into the convention center. We really like to watch our expenditures quite well to make sure that, you know, as a citizen of Sioux City, I know where my tax dollars are going, and I make sure that my staff understands that with the subsidy, we are using your taxpayer money, you know, in the building, and we want to be as frugal as we possibly can and use those dollars as wisely as we can. So, because I don't know about you, but I want my taxes going up. So we try to be very careful with how we spend money. The actual venue itself, now the construction is over, you know, for the most part, it's beautiful inside. Julie saw it. There are some other improvements that we're making. And there are some efficiencies that we have implemented behind the scenes just to ensure that it's the best guest experience possible. And for these events, when we have our meetings with our clients, we know what their expectations are, but then the meeting behind the scenes for us is what can we do that's something extra, you know, the above and beyond what they're expecting, because we want them to return again and again, so to the convention center. So our goal is to make that building the lights on as often as possible. So that is what we are looking for, because it helps 4th Street as well, so in the whole community.
Questions?
Looking forward to it opening and
Yeah.
Oh,
the
yes.
activity down there.
Yes.
And you're using that convention center already a lot.
A lot. So a lot more. And that's what we're, you know, what we want.
Because didn't you cite to me that revenues were already exceeding your expectation?
Correct. Yep. Revenues are already
Year-to-date?
way above expectation. So above our budgeted goals. So that's a positive for us.
Excellent.
So
Just got to get it open.
yes, we just got to get the hotel open. So I'm actually headed down there when I'm done here to see what's going on today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mark.
Next up is the police department. Page 243.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Rex Mueller, Police Department. I know that I've sat before you here just recently discussing the crime numbers and our response strategy, so I won't rehash over that. I'll kind of back up a little and talk about something briefly, and that was our strategic plan. We've been doing strategic planning the past several weeks with our staff, doing it department-wide with all the officers and staff, and we intend to do it in the community with the upcoming town hall meeting. But one of the things that I was really proud of in looking at it is the strategic goals that we had set from 2015 to 2019 we had achieved and done it well, and I don't know that it was conscious that we did so. We were just trying to do a very good job of advancing the agency, advancing training for our staff, our officers, improving services, improving efficiency, and increasing our outreach. And as you guys saw when we'd send you or at least Jessica would send you the reports on our ability to support the city's strategic vision. A lot of pages in there on what we're doing in the community. So I've been very proud of what we've been able to accomplish, and I think we've set some very lofty goals going forward in the coming year. for things that we would like to do to continue what I think has been a very positive trend in moving forward. So we're going to continue to do that.
I asked you this earlier. What is the wholesale price of gas that you're charging them? Yeah.
Oh, that CMG is currently charging?
Yeah.
The current?
Well, it's going up 6 cents. With the apartment of this size, that's a huge increase, I'm guessing. And that number's without tax, because it was $2.25 today at Walmart when I came by. So it'll explain to you how you can run CMG at a profit, because the gas that they make on the gas is unbelievable. I realize it's not going to change anything in and out, but you're also projecting your purchase price of that gas in this budget that's going to increase, which probably is not going to.
I don't know what the current charge is right now. I can check with CMG and let you know. Right now, what we've budgeted is $3.36 for diesel and $2.85 for regular. That's what was budgeted.
That's without tax.
What was the?
Don't they have to file to get their tax? Yeah, without the get back, they don't.
Get that back.
They don't have to. They pay taxes in the beginning, but then they file and get it back.
I think we buy it whole without
So we don't pay
tax.
tax on gas.
We don't pay tax
Not at all. I thought you had to file to get it back.
No.
They're paying, that's what my point is, they're paying like $1.60 right now, but charging the departments $2.85. And I know it's an in and out, but it's an unfair reflection to the other departments what CNG makes. I just want to point that out.
I don't think we're
Check with them.
charging
No,
$2.85.
this
We're
is just what
budgeting
we budget.
$2.85.
And this is based on an estimate when we go out to look at the consumer
But
index.
okay. You're not charging the departments.
So the last couple of months, we've been charging like $1.81, $1.88, $1.89.
But my point is, when you did your budget to purchase fuel, you set that mark.
Yes.
So you're over budgeting for fuel somewhere. I realize it's an in and out here,
I
Bob,
could say
but
yes.
somewhere you're budgeting for that fuel.
We budget very conservative, so we don't have to come back if gas prices.
I get that.
Yeah.
But
Are you asking where the extra?
$1.85 and $2.85 is a dollar spread when you're when you're putting your budget together. That's all my point is. It doesn't matter what you're charging departments. None of that matters.
What's on paper and what they're
Right.
planning.
Because it's an in and out to the department. I get that.
Yep.
But the overall budget is reflective of that higher price. And my complaint's always been, if you were going to make it $2.85, you should at least at a minimum take the gas tax out. But I understand you need some flexibility in your
Yep.
budget. I get that, and this is.
And I can work with Dave DeLong and CMG and see how they did it when he came from the airport in Des Moines, and it's possible that they looked at a different way of budgeting. We look at the consumer index, which is, it's difficult to budget out.
But you're
that
looking
far.
at the retail consumer, not the
Right.
wholesale. So.
Yep. So he and I can work together to determine if we can come up with a better methodology on how.
Well, I guess, I don't know,
budget
it's
so that it's
a
not
huge number
inflated
at $1
budget.
more a gallon. It's a huge
Yep.
number.
I would agree.
But that gives you flexibility in case something bad happens in your
It
budget.
does.
I get
Yep.
that.
And the other thing to consider is that, I think that $2.85, is that the average? Because diesel is more expensive.
No, diesel's $3.36.
Okay,
Diesel.
so-
They're 36.
Yep.
How many gallons are we looking at? Do we know?
A lot.
It's a lot, depending on the department. That's a significant portion of like the police's budget.
Oh, yeah, for their budget, it's huge.
Well, we're also looking at, Ford produces hybrid vehicles. We didn't buy any because we had enough patrol cars, and one of the things is the hybrid vehicles are usually more expensive. So we want to see if other departments who are using them, if that offset is appropriate, if we can save some gas and the cost of the vehicles themselves doesn't exceed that, then we would consider moving to hybrid vehicles to improve our fuel efficiency.
And we've emailed back and forth about that. I mean, there are some articles in some departments that are transitioning towards that. And I know, Mike, we talked about that as well, is not just moving the entire fleet to that or something, but at least just trying it out. You know what I mean? Like,
And the only
reason
reason we didn't buy any, Alex, is that we had enough cars, and when they were first available, we haven't bought any of this newest model that are available, which is nice because then we can sit back and look at other departments' experience with those vehicles and see if they're getting the savings in the fuel and if they're the repair costs, things like that. So
Let them
we're
work
able
out the
to,
bugs of those first ones.
yeah, we're able to watch and see if other departments have issues with it before we jump in. But I'd like to go to a hybrid vehicle if it makes fiscal sense for the city.
Well, and especially when you look at when you're out of your car and you just leave it run, if there's an opportunity for a hybrid vehicle to just go
To
in
run
that,
the
not
overhead
using,
lights and the
yeah,
computers.
and not
and-
using gas or
Absolutely.
anything like that, because
No, that's-
officers are notorious for just letting their car run for an entire shift.
Well, they have to
Well, they don't have any
because
choice.
it runs
Yeah.
all the equipment, and that's part of it, is it runs those computers.
Well, and just
those.
seeing if that part of
Yeah.
it, you know what I mean, at
Oh,
least
yeah.
can use less fuel during that time.
No, we keep our eyes on that, and that's something that we'd like to do if it makes sense. But sometimes what's marketed by the manufacturers and what you actually get are two different things, so.
And the tax incentive, everything else, I
Sure.
understand.
Mayor and council, I respectfully request that we add one additional police officer in FY 2021. And I'll give you my reasons, but let me be perfectly clear on this, Chief. I think what you've done and what your officers have done in this community has been outstanding. You've made a lot of improvements. We're safe. We're a safe community. But the difficulty I have is that I go to the national nights out, I go around to different neighborhoods around the community, and there's a call for additional police cars, to Mr. Gretkin's point that he keeps raising. When a squad car comes into the neighborhood or a police officer is seen, it changes the behavior of a lot of people. I'm concerned at this point, and I'm just speaking for me, but I hope the council will support this, but I'm concerned that we talk about, and you gave such a great review summary the last time you were before the city council, Chief, that we have a need for 3 to 5 to 7 to 8 officers. I'm not asking that we take a huge jump in our budget to support that number of officers. Yes, I would like to, but I have to be realistic. I have to look at what our tax collection is going to be. I think if we can start, and I know we can't bind future councils, Mayor, but I think if we start a program where we hire an officer a year, we can be at a point where if the need should arise, because the environment, the climate, everything is different today than it was 10 years ago. There's no question about that. And we have a lot of issues that are facing us. And Chief, again, you're handling them well. I want to be perfectly clear on that. But I want to be prepared. It's proactive planning. It's something that we build into our budget that people can see, the citizens can see, that the mayor, the council, city manager, city attorney, we're serious about public safety, and we're taking a hard look at it. I understand that I can be criticized on some of my comments. I understand that it may have an impact on the operating budget. That's where I rely on the city manager's office and the finance department to take a look at that. But I feel strongly that the time has come to hire an additional police officer to add to your force. In your summary presentation you gave us a couple of weeks ago, you said it takes up to 1 year, if not longer, to train a police officer, to have that officer come on the street by himself or herself. And that's a long time lag. And I just, again, I feel strongly about it. Again, I think you're doing a great job. I think our community is safe. I don't want to send any waves or vibes out that I'm saying it's not. I just want to be proactive and do some serious planning. So I would request that we add one additional police officer to and you haven't requested that, but I'm making that request because I think it's that important. Thank you.
What would you do with one extra police officer?
Well, if it was a long-term plan, Mr. Mayor, I think one of the first things we'd do is raise minimum staffing. We'd start staffing the watches with more officers, and that's the essential services. That's what our whole department is centered around. If we raised minimum staffing, that would mean more police officers on the street, shortened response times, more ability to deal with critical incidents without losing staffing, more ability to deal with unexpected losses like military deployments, injuries, things like that. I think if it was a long-term plan, I'll be honest, we're at the point where we do a very good job of doing more with less, and we try to do that, and we pride ourselves on that. And we want to come here and tell you that we're using all of our resources to the best of our ability. And the rubber band is stretched. We're doing our best with what we've got. But I'll be honest in saying that I wholeheartedly believe that if we had more officers, we could do a better job. It would improve the things I mentioned to you. It improved community safety, officer safety. And, to Mr. Moore's point, we are doing a good job. It is a safe community. But I have to look at what we could do with more resources. And I think we could do better with more resources.
What shift would that person be added to?
Beginning, I'd allow Captain Kirkpatrick to analyze that based on his numbers and need and call volume and go from there. If we were to add personnel little by little, we would add those to where we are most busy and where we're feeling the most need. And sometimes they have to shift those resources when Captain Kirkpatrick loses personnel to injury or deployments. Sometimes he has to move them from watch to watch just to maintain. So I would leave it to his judgment to determine where the best place to add the officers would be. But I would always go for adding it to essential services. That's our primary concern, is response to in-progress things, patrol. That would extend our capabilities. And strategic planning, we're always looking at other things that we can do, improving our investigative abilities with the Detective Bureau. But to be honest, right now where we're really hurting is uniform services, where we need more personnel.
Councilmember Moore, would you want to make a motion now, or would you like us to bring, I know there are some other items that you may bring up. Do you want us to bring them all back at wrap-up and have voting at that time?
You have a preference, Mayor? I'll defer to the mayor on that as far as the
Well, I think you got
agenda.
to, every proposal, I know we've seen some costs, but we've got to know, we've seen the cost. I don't know if we've seen what the cost, the levy.
Yeah. I think my recommendation would be a motion to have it brought back at wrap-up, and then we will have a summary that shows what the impact on taxes would be by position.
That's what I would prefer.
So if that's the case, we'd entertain a motion to direct staff to come back with this item for wrap-up.
That motion then. Did you get that, Teresa? Okay.
Back to wrap up then.
I'd second it.
I don't know if we need to do that, do we?
Need to do that.
Well, the manager asked for it.
Yeah, I don't know that a motion was, you're directing us to bring it back to
So,
wrap-up.
police officer would cost us, we're going down $3, so all of a sudden, we were only going down $1.50. Am I understanding that right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other
Council
questions
members.
for the chief? I guess in between now and then, I would like to, I think he knows today, but I'm not going to put him on the spot. I guess I would like to know what your heaviest concentration of calls are, and where you would utilize that person to start. I know you're not going to, you're going to have a guy go to, or gal go to the Africa. I know you're going to have somebody get hurt. I know all that. But today, where the department's at today, where would that person go?
I think Mark can answer that.
That's what I said. I'm
If
sure
today, he can happily answer that. He
But
knows
if he
the
doesn't
call
want
volumes
to
better
today,
than I do.
just get it.
Yeah, Mark Kirkpatrick, Captain Uniform Services. Right now, and I would echo the chief's sentiments, uniform services are where we're feeling the pinch right now. It's where we have the day-to-day issues with being able to staff our shifts adequately. Right now, we're staffing them to minimum with overtime, but it's a struggle. If I had that person today, where would I put them on the shift today? I would put them on our overnight shift. They seem to be encountering the majority of issues that we're seeing right now, and they have our greatest staffing shortage right now. I apologize. My voice is a little tough here. So I would put them on the night shift. But I would also add that every April and October, we reevaluate where we have our staff. Each shift we look at and determine what we want to staff that shift at for the next 6 months. And we take into consideration various things like the time of year. If it's winter coming upon us, we look at our day shift to have a higher call volume for traffic accidents. As summer comes upon us, we look at our afternoon shift and our overnight shift to have higher call volumes just because of the changes in the weather. So we evaluate those every April and October. And right now we're setting our staffing numbers for the upcoming 6-month period. And I would put that person right now on our overnight shift.
And would you see a reduction in overtime if you did hire an additional person?
I would be able to show a reduction, yes. We keep track of the overtime that we have to staff based simply on having staff shortages. We keep track of all of our overtime, why we're bringing an individual person in to work an overtime shift, and we can pull out that number that is because we didn't have our minimum staffing for that day.
I'd like to know that too, because if you're asking me to vote for additional personnel and there's no savings in overtime, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And you're scheduling regularly for overtime now?
Every day.
Mark, do you know year-to-date right now where the overtime fund stands for uniform services? Are you still within the budget?
By a percentage, yeah, we're still within the budget. We have a pretty good overtime budget for just these kinds of issues.
Where are they at on overtime today? Do you guys know?
Would it be a wash that you could take away 2080 out of your overtime?
I'm sorry.
Could it be that simple that you could eliminate 2,000
You know,
overtime hours?
we can get a report for you. The thing is that
Because
we could,
overtime doesn't have benefits.
well, and we can try to predict, I'll be honest, but we
No,
never
I don't
know
mean
what's going on
dollar-wise,
in the
I just
corner.
mean hours.
Oh,
Hours. If you have, add an FTE, 2080, can we assume that you can take 2080 out of your overtime or no?
I'm gonna jump in here. I don't like trying to answer questions like that without taking the time to look through everything.
I know
So
that's
we
a
will get
simple way
back
to look at it, right.
with an analysis on what that would mean. Just off the top of my head, we can say yes, and then we have 5 people deployed, and then
Sure,
now we're
right,
going
right.
right
No,
down.
no,
So I
I
don't want to answer
understand
that
that. I
here.
understand
We
that,
will take a
right.
look at it and we'll get back.
Unfortunately, just when we think we're going to be prepared for something, just when
Right.
we think Mark and I start getting happy and think we're coming back, we're going to be fully staffed. We have, 2 people resigned from the department. We have these unpredictable things that we would have never seen coming. It's always nice with drop to know when we're losing personnel. Mr. Padmore has been very nice at allowing us to hire so that we can try to get people on the streets and boots on the ground. For losses we anticipate, it's the unanticipated losses that kill us every time. And it's
key
very
is to get
unpredictable.
that program back at WIP. That's ridiculous that we still have to send people to Des Moines.
You know what?
I know you
now that
are, and
No,
it
we're
needs-
working with Chief Kevin Vandevet from Lamar's. We just had recent meetings, and we're trying to bring back that program, and we think we have some solutions so that we can start utilizing that. And that would more heavily involve our department in training, and which is a benefit to us. So we're going to try to get WIT up and running for that benefit. Now, that is a short course, so they have to meet certain requirements for us to send them through that. But we're excited about what we're laying out here. We might be able to get a better academy here at WIT with our involvement than ILEA actually has. So that's in process right now. So you're very right about that.
Terribly expensive process. It's
Yeah.
not efficient whatsoever. They get no street time. It would just make a lot of sense to have that program back here. I don't
No, and
know how it ever went away. It's just.
We're working on it, and we saw that as an advantage. The problem was WIT would often not have enough enrollment to run the class, so we're going to try to help them to become a regional
Right.
academy that's well thought of so that they send people, and we can always send our folks there.
But that's something that you need to talk to the city manager about, because we might be better off to subsidize that program. It may be cheaper than all the hotel rooms and everything else you guys are spending. Travel.
Well, actually, we, by providing instructors, that was one of the things that we were going to do to subsidize.
That's
is that
fine.
we would instruct some of their classes.
Right.
They would give us breaks on the tuition for our officers, and they were very good about that. They want the additional involvement of Sioux City in their academy. We have a lot of subject matter experts that do very well to teach at WIT.
That's a great idea.
So, and that's what we want. We've wanted that for a long time, but we couldn't count on what other agencies, but we've come up with some strategies in a few weeks ago in a meeting that we had with WIT that we think could lead to very positive changes and more uses of that academy.
Chief, do you have any idea what the attrition rate is annually?
For the department?
Yes.
And
Is it consistent that you can count on 3 people going every year or 4 people going?
5 to 6.
5 to 6?
5 to 6.
Yeah.
We
There
average. We average about, at least the number we use is about 5 people per year that we can count on we're going to have to replace.
Well, and in the coming years, I think you remember when we had in the 90s when we had a lot of hiring. I remember we had that board down in professional standards of all the people, including myself, that we hired in the 90s. Those people are going to be reaching retirement age in the next 5, 6, 7 years, and we're going to start seeing a large migration away from the department because of reaching retirement age that we have to prepare for. And part of that has been our recruitment and retention strategy, that we've really worked hard to get our face out in the community, to hire well, doing yearly hiring so we don't miss those kids that graduate midpoint in our list. So we're doing everything we can to try to pave the way for replacing personnel when we start losing them, but yeah, it's a big scare. I mean, when I came on, there was 400 people testing. Now we get about 1/10 of that. So finding quality candidates that we can retain is a priority for us.
Well, I wonder if with an attrition rate that high, if there must be some savings on an annual basis in their budget.
No, because Bob lets them hire ahead of time, so there's no savings. They actually build the budget so that they're hiring before they leave.
For those that we predict, though, Mayor, sometimes though,
but you're going to have you got 153 people. Average cop lasts 25 years at most. You're going to have 6 a year, no matter what happens.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's just reality. The minimum you're going to have on an average year is 6.
What we found, though, is when we lose some folks, like to the military deployments, those are usually
I understand that.
No, but those folks are usually at the highest income level. They're at step 5 officers. When we hire new, they're starting at the lowest step or the second step above that, so they're paid much lower than the personnel that sometimes they're replacing. So
no, I get that.
There's a cushion for us.
You're going to have a attrition of that number.
Yeah, and that's what we try to plan for, and that's where our blitz has really been, to see how we can have quality lists to replace the personnel that we expect to lose and those that we don't. And I appreciate one thing. I appreciate Councilman Moore giving me the opportunity to address you a few weeks ago. I'm all for doing that every year if it helps you. I appreciate the response that I get from all of you and the support that I get from all of you. It's definitely an education every year to understand what our challenges are, and the fact that all of you listen to us and seek very hard to understand what our challenges are is much appreciated. You've always been there to support us in public safety in general, and it means a lot. So,
again, I'm searching for and proposing a long-term solution or proposal to address the short-term issues that are coming up.
And we would appreciate that. That would improve services, I believe.
I do have one more question that's kind of off topic in a way. The Red Flex operations on page 274. Am I looking at those numbers correctly? It says number of photo enforced speed citations issued, and FY16 was 21,486, 17 was 19,000, 18 was about 17,000, and in 19 it's about 59,000. Are those numbers correct?
Must be, because it was like $5 million last.
But would it be up at 40,000?
I don't know. The numbers was running about $2 million.
Have you driven down the interstate lately? If you're going the speed limit, you're the only one.
Well, yeah, but it just...
I don't know that I can explain the anomaly, but we believe the numbers are accurate. It may have something to do with...
But I mean, if something happened...
It's an amazing number, like $5 million, and it was been running $2 million. It's an amazing number.
So
something happened.
Again, I don't have a good explanation. I have a couple of theories. One is that a good portion of the interstate opened up quite a bit, and the speed camera opened a lot bigger than they are because it's getting done. And the speed cameras are currently in the construction zone. So people are going quite a bit of speed, even though we give them like a mile before the actual camera is into the construction zone, but they're still chucking along. So I think that's just one of my theories.
I appreciate that, but I mean, we had that was a situation a year before that, wasn't it?
No, it only
Oh, it
took
was?
about a portion,
Ran
a
all the
small
way to
portion of the year
almost-
before we,
Riverside
Okay.
exit.
Yeah.
That's down to Hamilton now.
So you're talking about where you're going 65 and then the signs are posted
and
50.
also in the other direction also. So both of the interstates opened up quite a bit further.
Okay.
So they're wide, 3 lanes now, and then you come into and we give, the sign gives them plenty of time to which to
Right.
start slowing down, but
No, that explains it. The numbers just jumped out.
that's,
And I didn't think,
again, that's just a theory, Councilman. I'm not positive. I
Sure.
mean, I also suspect that a lot of people were, up until it started opening up more and the traffic was flowing better, people were avoiding the interstate, whereas now they're on it
Yeah.
more.
Traffic count.
So we have a higher traffic count.
and Mr. Gretkin's observation's correct. I feel like I'm standing still.
Yeah, they're just zooming right on by.
Well, and look at you can tell when the accidents go from 1 to 13, they're speeding again.
Yep.
That's the reality.
Oh, that's a good point, too. That's,
They're cooking through there.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you. That just jumped off the page at me. It was just truly a question on my part, not a criticism or anything other than what a big jump. 42,000. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Parks and Recreation, page 207, Matt Salvatore.
Matt Salvatore, Parks and Recreation Director. We have a fairly straightforward budget. I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Hang on, Matt. What changes did you have?
Kinds of little ones.
Just smaller ones?
No.
Just some small personnel changes. Everything else is fairly straightforward.
I have one question, doesn't have anything to do with Matt, but how can you
That's parks maintenance, just so you know.
charge the Parks and Rec, how can you charge the stormwater utility fund for the Parks and Rec? How is that? Because you're in charge of ditches or something in the Parks Department? Not your question, this is a question for her. Why are we charging stormwater utility fund 87,609 for Parks and Rec?
Park maintenance, so the park maintenance crew will often do things.
They'll do stormwater maintenance or various ponds.
That's what I'm asking. So those,
Only department division that is supported by stormwater fund.
because they're in charge of going out to these private ponds that we've accepted responsibility for and maintaining them?
Yes.
So let that be a lesson to all of you that I've tried to tell you not to do. Don't vote for any more of those.
What ponds would they be?
We've accepted them like at Fleet Farm and other places, right?
I don't know the exact, Kelly, can you speak to those ponds, the locations of the ponds?
You accepted it up there on that one on Outer Belt when I told you not to. That looks like crap now and never gets mowed.
Your council, Kelly
Up on Outer Drive where that housing deal goes up on the hill, they put a pond down below, right on in Outer Drive. And it doesn't ever get mowed or anything. That you accepted maintenance on that pond. Private
Oh, on
pond.
the Larry Book
We got 'em-
subdivision
Yeah, we
up
got
there?
them all over town, we're doing it.
can get you a list of the private ponds. It's mostly been handled through environmental services as far as the mowing and requesting maintenance items. There are some some is done by contract also when it becomes more than we can handle. So if you would like, we can provide that.
Like him to bring a memo back?
I just was trying to figure out why that was coming out of stormwater fund. Now I understand.
Bad to have a list though, Kelly.
With Mark Sims to get that to you.
And it doesn't have to be by wrap-up Thursday.
No, I don't.
No?
It's gonna shock you. I think we have 6 or 8 of them at least.
I just received a text from Mark Sims. The majority of the private ones are done through utilities, but we do have some that we maintain, and I believe Perry Creek Maintenance is also part of that amount too, the 85,000.
Here's Mark. Yeah, we do have a CIP for the maintenance of those detention ponds. I think there's 5 or 6 of them. We had a study done this last year to determine what the condition was, so we know what to do going forward.
Does that go to your point, Mayor, about, so there are other ponds that are privately maintained?
We haven't been accepting
It
responsibility.
hasn't been consistent.
No, lately, we've not been accepting the maintenance on them.
No, we haven't. I'm not aware of the private ones. I know the ones that the city owns. That's what we handle.
Well, the city doesn't even own some of these. You're maintaining.
Well, that may be.
You're maintaining them for private developers is what you're doing.
But the private ones, I mean, that's done when the subdivision platting's done.
Right, and
correct?
up there, if you remember, you were here, I think.
Yes. No,
We accepted that one.
yes.
And we have done that in the past, and it's not fair because now we have a hodgepodge of who's responsible for them, and the developer should put that in a condo association and be responsible for it themselves.
Well, that's why I'd be interested in seeing what our list is of the ones we're maintaining. Not owning, but just we're maintaining. We've taken on the maintenance responsibilities.
I'm not familiar with the stormwater that you're talking about, Mayor. Amount there that's going to parks. I wonder if it has to do with the controlled burn. Should be okay. Potentially.
What's that?
I wonder if it has to do with the controlled burn potentially. I don't know.
I have no idea.
That's
I guess it'd be interesting to know what it is then if we're putting $90,000 away. Where's the pool revenue? Where did it end this year? You know?
Our subsidy, looks like our pool revenue was 197,000 for FY19. Oh, you want to know for FY, where we're at with FY20?
Well, we should know our pool revenue.
Our subsidy is less than $100,000, which is way far away from where we started.
I'm just curious, I'm just asking because I just want to know, you had 217, 203, 197. It was declining in 19. I want to know what it was this last pool.
We have a report on that. We obviously have one more month left of pool operation before the fiscal year ends. For June, the month of June. Yeah.
But didn't we...
So it's a little awkward because our seasons are always split based on fiscal year. But we do a report every year.
Yeah, I know.
And we can provide that again.
Can we do it on a calendar year basis just to have a consistent?
You keep track of it on a season basis?
We can do it either way.
Okay. Because that might be a better way to look at it, if you look at it season over season.
Yeah, just out of curiosity. So was our revenue on the pools up from the 197, you think? Or will it be?
I don't want to speak to that without knowing off the top of my head.
You want him to provide a memo related to that, Mayor?
I'm just curious.
It'll be close, I bet.
And
Matt,
Home Park, how much did it make this?
That's what I was going to ask.
Our budget for the current year, it was set at 278,000 for revenue, and we are already at 300,000. And our attendance is 22,000, which is 2,000 more than previous years. So we are trending very well there, possibly going to be operating in the black this year. And that's a testament to our staff for all the hard work that's gone into making that project successful.
You'll meet your FY 2021 goal. Break even.
Break even or make money again.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were going down the hill last night.
Yes.
Probably not this weekend though, huh?
It'll be possibly a little faster tonight, but this morning and this afternoon, we're expecting another sold-out weekend with the weather we're going to have.
That's one city facility we want to go downhill.
Yeah.
Go downhill and fast.
But I don't want to hold your hand going downhill either, though.
Now we need to get a $500,000 grant or the Moore Foundation, legal foundation, to give us $500,000 to build zip lines there.
The more Scott.
Great
Foundation.
idea.
That's a great
They
idea.
will be as popular as the Hill.
Scott Moore Foundation, 90-10.
So they were only building a $5,000 zip line, not a $500,000 zip. I got the 4. If you
Is
got
that
the
on track? Is that going to be reality?
I
Zip
hope
line?
so.
It's an
Someday.
idea. We've researched it, but
How
obviously
high
the
up
funding.
is it?
Matt and I have talked a lot about it, but our legal department,
not very.
pulse starts to race as soon as we
Well,
come talk
now's
to
the
them about
time
it.
to go to the legislature on that. I don't know why that would be. There's private zip lines all over the United States.
There are.
So the risk can't be as high as what you have with going down that hill and up. I mean, it can't be any higher risk. I mean, you've got to check the safety equipment. I know the one out to the pumpkin patch, Joe Van Meter, an old fireman, he has to go down every morning by himself to check that line. So that, I mean, that's the key, is send a guy like Kelly down there early every morning to make sure.
Exactly right.
And
If
Matt
there are any
Scott-
hiccups, I
Matt
mean,
Scott
sorry,
would like to
Kelly,
make sure that you don't put that 250-pound limit on it, like a little higher.
What's he mean, Kelly?
In South Dakota, they limited Matt, he couldn't go with his kids because he was a little hefty.
Didn't we go to the legislature 2 or 3 years
For
ago?
Cone Park,
To change?
basically.
Yeah, the public,
for sledding
the public
we did, I
sledding,
think. Cone Park is
the
sledding.
public sledding has been
Yeah.
changed in Iowa.
Right,
Yeah.
We were successful
right.
accomplishing that. So we could do it with the,
And Bob has directed me in the past to do some research on the zip line. It's just a significant investment at the upfront, but it's something I do have.
$500,000 you thought, right?
Yes, but we do have some research that we've done on that idea.
I'd like to see that happen.
Well, and you wonder about the cost too. We've talked, because you had figures that it was like $1 million to look at doing summer tubing and a zip line or something like that. You know what I mean? Between those two projects. Last time I remember having that conversation. And I just wonder what that breakdown would be. What would be the easier, low-hanging fruit? You know what I mean? Like a summer tubing operation of some type, or like a slip and slide out there.
Yeah.
Versus a zip line, you know, what is.
We've looked into.
So would you line the lanes
What's
with
more-
something so it was? a
Yeah, there's
slower
actually,
risk?
the summer tubing thing is a real thing that's happened
Yeah.
in other states. Again, just a significant upfront investment, but I think
Yeah.
that would be something that would go over very well. The slip and slide thing, we did a lot of research on as well, and there's a lot of state requirements involved. So that one doesn't look like a reality, but we've done a lot of research.
don't keep Kelly too busy, though. We've got the riverfront development
Right.
coming up that will need your undivided attention.
What'd you say about the slip and slide? There's what?
There's a lot of state it's regulated basically as a big water slide by the state of Iowa.
'Cause I wonder how that
And you have to
group-
have a pool of water that catches people at the bottom.
Right.
And you can't have it
Be dry.
Well, we
just
have-
regular potable water. It's
we
almost
have
has
that.
to be
We got the
it almost has to
retention
be
pond right at the
chlorinated.
Let them fly.
Yeah, exactly. Just ramp up into that bad boy. Well, and the reason I ask is because I wonder how Slide the City does it. There's a company called Slide the City.
They're regulated by the state. Yeah.
I talked to Reagan about, but they don't have a pool at the bottom.
Yeah, I'd almost have to, because you have to recirculate the water.
Or they put it in the
that's
street?
chlorine it and everything else.
Correct.
Yeah, there's no pool at the bottom.
Yeah,
Well, then they're letting the water go into a ditch and they're not recycling then.
Well, they were putting it on a city street and then it just goes
Yeah,
down.
because I talked to Reagan about doing it downtown.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we've looked at that.
I don't know. Oh, yeah, it was on downtown Partners or something maybe, but.
Yeah.
Anyway, we like.
Like this,
Other
not
questions?
necessarily,
I think your parking lot at Cone Park, from what I understand from talking to people, made a huge, that's.
I totally agree,
One
Mayor.
of the major reasons you're up is because people didn't have to walk them.
I think that's a big, well, the weather too, but the
Right.
big reason for our success this year is that parking lot. It's nice not having people parked up and down Line Drive, having the convenience of walking straight to the park.
I still can't get over in those areas that the lines don't stay longer when we paint lines. You know what I mean? Like when you just paint lines or paint even the handicap symbols or the striping, if it seems like a brand new parking lot with brand new striping. And then I went down there just the other weekend, Kelly, it was last weekend, wasn't it, Matt? Yeah,
Yes.
with Winterfest. And I'm like, you can't see any of these lines. You know what I mean? People parking everywhere and.
Well, back in long time ago.
1978.
When I was,
Lead, right? Is that what you're gonna?
I worked on paint crew. I ran a paint crew for, and at that time, we were using solvent-borne paint. The state of Iowa had just switched over to latex. That's where they're at right now, is latex paint.
We need to bring lead back for those.
Well, not lead. We have tried using solvent base again. You know, the VOCs is the big thing. So that's why everybody switched to latex. Latex doesn't last. We all know that. So you have to paint more often. And on new surfaces, it lets go a lot faster. So it takes, you know, you've got that concrete cure on it, it'll flake the paint right off. So combination of going away for more environment friendly from the high solvent to a latex is part of the reason it doesn't last. And on new pavement, you don't have a good first year. So, but it's laid out, and we'll get to it.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
I know there's no answer. The mayor's brought it up multiple times, and we've talked about the different products, but it's just like, geez, it's between streets and parking lots, you just can't.
Well, when you paint in the fall, like they had to do, the snowplows play, I mean, if you could paint in the spring, you'd get almost a whole season.
Or to adhere.
Well, at least
Right.
yeah.
Like shingling and one
And a little bit is, you know, when you used your solvent base, your mill thickness was a lot thinner. Now they're using more of a high build, so you have a higher, which will scrape off easier because you have a bigger surface to grab when you plow the street. So some of it's been inset. Be interesting to see how the IBPI Center, that one was ground in and used a different material, more of an epoxy base paint, and it's below the surface actually, so it should last longer. Higher cost to begin with, but we'll see on comparison, see how that.
Well, that'll be great to have little champion challengers so you can really measure that.
Cool.
That you could, in a nutshell, from back.
You're a historian. You've arrived. Couldn't you also build it into the design of, on certain areas, not all areas, it'd be too expensive, but couldn't you actually build it in the design, something like Hard Rock did at their parking lot, where you have different colors, different.
Oh, the brick.
It's built in. It's built in. I mean, you can't.
Yeah, that
I would
But
say-
people also don't
brick
see
worked
that.
real well. Go out to my sidewalk in Morningside that the city conned me into doing in the Coast to Coast or the old Coast to Coast store, and that's cracking like.
Is that a design brick?
Yes, it's horrible. The maintenance is unbelievable. Look at 4th Street, those brick down there.
We're just talking about those, how
Yeah.
they'll just pop out of this.
Well, not so much brick as it.
That's
Stamped.
I'm talking,
Stamped
mine's
concrete.
not actually brick.
Here's
Yeah.
stamped concrete.
It's stamped concrete, but when it cracks, it's unbelievable.
Oh, I see, with the cracking of it, okay.
Yeah, it's a maintenance nightmare. I mean, concrete's bad enough, you know it's always gonna crack, but then you get that, and it's really uneven when that cracks, so.
How many years have you been here now, Matt?
5.5.
And you guys still have that honeymoon going.
Yeah. Keep up the good work. Seems like it's only been a year and a half.
Uh-huh.
All right, thanks, Mayor and Council.
Let's take a little
Thank you.
break. You guys ready?
Julie.
You guys ready?
Julie.
Economic Development, page 107, Marty Doherty.
Good morning.
Morning, Marty.
The budget itself is pretty straightforward, and it's not too changed from last year. Happy to answer questions. I do want to mention two things, kind of budget related. First of all, I know a number of you were at Debbie Durham's presentation yesterday, and she mentioned the state marketing study they did, and it's all about workforce, right? Everybody's talking about workforce these days, and an opportunity to be part of their co-op program means buying into their marketing program. We looked at that pretty closely a few months back. Ann looked at it, and we decided it's kind of expensive, even though it's a co-op. It is kind of pricey, and it's a lot of social media type things. So we decided that we probably should improve our content first before we participate in that, and maybe there was a short window, and maybe look at doing it in the future instead of jumping into it right away with not quite knowing what we were doing. So we were working on this anyway, but we decided to improve and update our ED website, which is part of the city website, but it's separately operated. And so we had budgeted some funds over 2 years to do that, and we just started that process with Bob's approval, and that should be done by this summer. So we thought it's not a total change, but it's an upgrade. So that would improve the content that we have. It's about 5 years old. So, and we will then push that out over the social media platforms and also in our traditional ways of marketing. So, and Ann does a great job with all of that. And so that's one element. Doesn't add to our budget. I just wanted to tell you about that. Second thing was, we've worked for some time with a regional group called Iowa's West Coast Initiative. It's required a lot of volunteer time. There's about 6 or 7 different organizations, 3 counties, and us, and the chamber, and SEDC, and so on. I'm happy to report that we were able to receive a grant. We just found out about this a few days ago.
I was just going to ask. I saw that you applied, but I didn't know we found out.
$185,000 to use over 2 years. The plan is to hire someone, so that would not be a city position, or necessarily, it would be somebody that would report to this Iowa West Coast Initiative group. So, but what this will do is we'll be able to, again, in partnership with all our partners, have a full-time person working on entrepreneurship. A lot of the stuff, for example, that Renee does, that's sort of more or less volunteer, and a number of other people, things like Innovation Market that just took place last week. And we'll be able now, we felt, the group felt, and we felt that we needed more of an effort in terms of business, working with small business startups, entrepreneurs. This will allow us to have somebody doing that full-time all year long, putting on events like that, conducting training programs, and so on. And it was competitive. There were 3 cities that were awarded. We were one of 3. And so we will work in partnership. The city has been the fiscal agent for grants for that group before, so we'll be the fiscal agent. But again, we're evaluating who that person will actually work for, and probably one of the groups, and then where it will be located. And we'll probably locate it in a central location, perhaps in the co-working space downtown. And so kind of a neutral site, because this is somebody that supports somebody that would support all the different groups in the organization. So that's, 3, Monona, Plymouth, and Woodbury County, and Lamar's and Sioux City, and Chamber, and so on. So that's, we think that's a great step forward. It'll also free up a little more time for our staff, for Renee in particular, and so we'll be able to stretch our budget a little farther.
That's awesome. I was waiting on that with bated breath. I'm excited about that. I think that's something I was going to bring up before you even said this, that I think we need to devote more time to. I don't know what that job description will look like, but if I could just caution or say one bit of advice, at least that I've noticed, is I really want to make sure that we recruit someone that owns a small business or has owned a small business, or has opened that or has done something. I think that there's so many different nuances when it comes to ownership and going through some of those struggles, you know what I mean? And understanding, gosh, well, you can work with this, or, you can apply for this and do that. You know what I mean? Where sometimes you get an entry-level position and their enthusiasm is there and they can connect people, or they can, do a training, but sometimes we need that. We need to balance that experience.
Sure. And we're actually...
Go ahead.
We're drafting that job description right now, so your words are very timely. So, and I agree with you.
The other question that I had written down is, I understand your highlights are extensive, and I think your team does a great job with very limited means and time. But what is the biggest payoff you are seeing with your time? I think again, I said it earlier today, and I think especially with ED, I think about this often, that it's like, if we're going to continue doing the same thing and expect different results, like that's the definition of insanity. Debbie talked about that yesterday. What are we seeing the greatest payoff for starting new businesses, for expanding new businesses, whether it's your retention visits, your expansion visits? Where is your time best spent? Where would you put more time if you had it? It's a broad question, and I know you pontificate for quite a while, but I just really am
So you're making all these guys nervous because you'll get me talking about.
Man, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm interested in that as well.
But it's like, I just wonder, and at least now you will have more time if you have this full-time person to be able to focus on entrepreneurship. Right. And studies are coming out every day about how minorities are way more likely to take a chance and start a new business. Sure. We have a large minority population here that I think is hungry to start businesses. So I'm excited for that position, but I don't know what your staff is.
Try to keep my answer short. I think we need to do all the traditional things, the business retention visits, the working on expanding the sites available. You heard Debbie talk a little bit about that yesterday. Good sites, having the infrastructure in place, all those things. The two areas that I highlighted today, I think, are two that we need to do more in. One is workforce. There was, the chamber added a person, or Sioux Initiative added a person, Brad, and he reformed the workforce group with a lot of local employers, and I've been going to those meetings, and I think that's an important effort. We'll probably see more partnerships regionally for, once that group kind of decides what it wants to do. That group had been formed, and then it fell off, and now it's back together again. So I think workforce is really important, and we need to spend time marketing and selling our community for workforce growth and development on the education side, but also just getting more people to come here. And I think the council's doing a great job with a lot of the things that you're doing. You were just talking about Cone Park and all that. I mean, those are the kind of things that will help grow our community. And then in entrepreneurship, small business, startups, and those things, that's why we're excited about this position, so that we can do more in that area. I think that's an area where we need to do more. Iowa as a state and probably our community have been behind the kinds of business growth, business startups and so on that you see in other parts of the country.
Well, and incubators and things like that, I really think that's the future. I've talked with Renee about it before. I think I've talked to you, that it's like...
You probably know we're exploring some grant options there that we think
And when you look at like the Nubo City Market in Cedar Rapids, or other ones that are downtown, co-working spaces and stuff like that, I mean, I think we need to look at property and where...
We had the first incubator in the state, and it didn't work.
Where was that, or when?
Where my gutter helmet building is.
Really?
Chamber bought it.
There?
Well,
over on 4th Street. Chamber
there
bought
was,
it, and they spent a lot of money. It was very nice. But when you get done with your costs and that, if you don't have a way to subsidize it, the rent ends up being as much or more than what you have in a traditional landlord relationship. So other than sharing a copy machine and some internet, there's not a lot of savings. I mean, I was all for it. I thought it was a great deal, but it just did not work. And they had that set up so that you could, in the back, they had walls so you could be like an office, or you could be a small welding shop. They had it so you could divide it, but it didn't take off. It was unfortunate, and that was back in the 80s.
Yeah, we were sort of ahead of the game there, if you look at what's being talked about today. But I think there's some new models that we were looking at. There's some innovation centers and some tech centers, some maker spaces that we're looking at. And the good news there is that we may have an opportunity to get some federal grant funds for that. There's been, partly because of opportunity zones, making us more eligible, and partly because that's kind of the trend where the federal government is providing funds is into upskilling workforce and diversifying economies. There's some opportunities there. So we're looking at that right now, and I think we can provide you some more information in the future. But like there's something, one that was created out in Rapid City that's kind of interesting to see what they did there. And we'll provide you more information on that. But we think that's a good goal for us to try to come up, again, working in partnership with other.
Can improve. I had no idea what the mayor's talking about. You know what I mean? See what we on that model, what we learned.
Because you were still like in grade school then.
I just think you were probably ahead of your time, honestly.
Marty, I don't know, when did we do that, Marty? Do you remember the years?
Someone said the 80s.
80s, maybe.
Yeah,
right, I know.
that's ahead of your time. Now, I think that would be much more.
Actually, it was about the time they first formed the Sioux Initiative.
I think it was April of 81, I think. No, I think it was after I was on the council, because I think I was part of helping them get that done.
There were several versions of it.
82?
that were tried.
86 is when he was here.
86 when I come on. I think they did it, I don't know. I think it was in the.
Anyway,
Marty.
I think it would be more accepted now when you.
Marty, I know you know this too, but when you talk about workforce development, please try to form some partnerships on affordable housing. Talk to Jill and others. Make sure they include affordable housing and childcare. Two important components. You can bring all the workers you want to Sioux City, Iowa, but if they don't have an affordable house to live in and they don't have childcare,
Totally agree.
Doesn't do it
We talked about it a little bit under the CIP, but that, absolutely, housing is a critical component and childcare for
I'm hoping
workforce
we
growth.
can, I'm hoping the
For
city
the
can be more
homeless as well.
proactive. I hope the city can be more proactive and
Absolutely.
create
Right.
affordable housing. Pardon?
For the homeless as well, housing.
Yeah, well, housing for everybody. Yeah.
That was one of the things Debbie harped on.
Everybody's got
I
a lot
agree.
of good ideas. You ought to open the checkbook and quit giving it to every small town. Work on some of the larger city
now that-
issues if they, you know, I know that
I know
small
she's
towns have
reviewing all the
problems, but
IFA.
so do big cities.
Yeah.
She's reviewing all the IFA programs, which is interesting to watch, and then, like, you know, the workforce housing tax credits, we're hoping that will see some more funding this year.
Well, and she also brought up the mega site.
Yep.
Look at the wrong guy. You're looking at the wrong council. You need to talk to those guys. They got all that CF money, the charge from CF. If you remember that press conference, the day they did it, Marty, where the CEO from CF came and announced the $1.6 million that turned into $2.2 billion projects. We want the tax dollars of this project to go for economic development in the county. I don't know that $10 million of gravel road met their definition of economic development. I just got to throw that out there.
That's why I gave a look to you, because I know you remember that.
I remember it like it was yesterday,
Yes.
my friend.
You don't forget anything.
And Marty, the thing that I would
That's why.
think about too, when you're really focusing on economic development, some of the things that Debbie said, it wasn't the venue to challenge on some of those things. I wasn't going to raise my hand and say, I really want you to rethink some of this. She's highlighting things that we're doing in Iowa. What was it? 175 insurance headquarters are based in Iowa. We're second in the country.
And none
Talked
here.
about, hold on.
Where are they?
Talked about Invitech or whatever it is, that company that invested here, talked about all these things. And the only thing she said about our community is that she's focused on a mega site. And I'm just getting real tired of us being just this one trick pony that it's like, well, it's only manufacturing, it's only these mega sites, it's only that type of stuff. If we continue to have that mentality and none of those insurance headquarters are here, and the only white collar headquarters we have in the tri-state area are all in the dunes, we're gonna have real trouble.
But it's not from lack of trying.
No, and I'm not blaming you. I'm saying the state
We
needs
only have
to.
ever had one insurance company, now, not Great West, because it's in Nebraska, so I'm not minimizing
Yeah, yeah.
that they're a great company.
Oh, yeah.
But in Sioux City, Iowa, we only have ever had one insurance company with a home base, and none of you will even know it. But Fred Davenport and a group started it, and it was in that building across, the office building, what used to be a bank, across the street from Long John Silver's. That used to be an insurance company. I take that back. We had two back when we were on the council. We brought that Boise, Idaho insurance. Were you on the council then? No, it was before your time.
I think so.
We brought a health insurance company out of Boise, Idaho. So we've only had two in the whole history. And you can call on them in Des Moines. But guess what? They want to stay in Des Moines because it's easier to steal other people's employees than it is to go find your own. It's bad. But
I want to focus on a mega site, but I just think that it's like, geez, if we have 175 in the whole state, how many are, I wanted to ask her that.
We have talked a lot and recently to both Debbie and some of her staff about diversifying our local economy and different leads. They do tend to send the medical leads to Iowa City and the ag leads to Ames and the insurance leads to Des Moines. And we've been talking about that a lot. And that's maybe your voice
we were
too
the
will
one
make a
city that would
difference.
take a packing house with the stipulation that they would help us with other things down the road. Right?
Yeah.
Marty, what's the Iowa women's lead change?
I think some of the, there's some funds that come through our or contributions to other agencies, that was a conference that was held here.
No, it says we're contributing 14.5 to
I can
8.
Well, it's an annual one, isn't it?
It's an annual conference that's held roughly in February. It's a women's leadership group. Over the past few years, we've been a sponsor of that.
And what does that cost us?
I believe we do $2,500.
And what do we give the Iowa West Coast Initiative?
That's 2,000. That's the,
And what do
that
we-
was a match to the previous grant that we had.
And what do we give the downtown trolley? What's that?
1,500, Bob? I can't remember.
I was going to say,
We
between-
help offset the
think it's
free
50.
trolley that runs during the summer.
and that's a partnership with Downtown Park.
Yeah.
They do it as well.
Yes.
Well, it increased 14.5, and that's only about $7,000. So where's the? If it increased, that means they had money before. So what the heck? What else are we doing?
I don't know, because I didn't think Iowa West Coast was that significant.
No, it's 2. That's 2,000.
It's only 2.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I'm sure these are sponsorships of some kind.
Able to tell in the line item?
Yeah, they actually have downtown trolleys budgeted for $10,000.
Oh,
The Iowa Women's Lead change is $2,500, and the Iowa's West Coast sponsor is $2,000.
Bob, it's no wonder Phil Carpuck thanked me last night.
Yeah, why are we doing 10,000 for that?
I don't know what Downtown Partners part or share of it is. I would have to ask
I
Reagan.
believe I thought it was split 50-50, but I'm not positive.
I know it's significant. Usually she's here.
I'm not gonna go there, but I just say that
Hey, where's
we don't
that?
ship people out to the mall, but what we'll do her downtown,
Where's that rail project you're working on?
long ways away. But I might get it done before you get a tourism bureau.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
Couldn't let that one go as long as you asked me.
Oh, I knew you were gonna say it.
Talking about the overhead rail?
No. No.
3rd Street.
job. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty.
No, it'll never go overhead.
Next
We
up
did
is
that.
Community Development, page 87, Marty Doherty and Jeff Hansen.
Jeff Hansen, Community Development Operations Manager. Our operating budget this year is pretty much unchanged from last year. We do have one employee change in the inspections division. We have asked for a secretary position to be increased to a technical clerk. When the previous individual in that position had retired, Marge was in that position. It was technical clerk, and it was reduced down to secretary, and we're asking for that to be increased back to the technical clerk to more match what the responsibilities of that employee is. Other than that, there's no additional staff changes. We do have a few vacancies right now from some resignations and retirements, and we are in the process of hiring and posting for those positions.
How could you go up with that little bit of change, $138,000? I know some of it's salary increases, but that's unbelievable when you only had 310 to begin with to go up 138. It cannot be that. Page 91.
Salaries. I'll pull up the salary schedule.
Oh, you're doing 121 and benefits, or 19 in group health.
Yeah, the total's 138,
Yeah.
679.
I'd have to ask Teresa for help on that, but the note has the salaries and benefits as well as the group health and dental insurance.
As long as you're pulling up, pull up E too.
Teresa, did we have to reallocate based on administrative expenses really?
We did do reallocations, yes. But don't think that's an admin.
But you're still using CBDG funds for it.
Yeah, and that's not admin. I'm looking at the increase in admin.
Well, you can get us,
Okay,
Yeah, we'll get
let me
back.
look
a whole
for it.
lot of money
get back.
for
Yeah, I'll get back to you, sorry. Take through.
that and, the 112,000 in miscellaneous increase to payments to other agency based on current programs. What is that? That's, I mean, this is a $250,000 plus increase in a small budget, which.
What page?
91 again.
91.
That's a real
91
concern
item
that-
E.
that a budget can grow 250,000 on $1 million budget or $800,000 budget.
Yeah, I was going to have Jill come up.
I say, it looks like a majority of the
Sorry.
increase, though, is increase in community development funds, grant funds.
We had a
I
couple,
understand that's not tax dollars, but it's a huge increase in.
It probably is due to, we received an ESG grant that we weren't expecting. And so the way that some of the salaries were shifted around, I think makes it look like it's a huge increase, but I think it's something how you structure how people are budgeted. But I think the most of it's tied to about 140,000 we received in ESG funds. Yeah, solutions grant, yeah, for homeless mostly.
Okay, well,
Because that's a new grant for this.
Yes, yeah, a new.
but the net result still is your tax asking of property taxes is going up over $72,000 if you look on page 90. So it's not all being, my point is, it's not all being taken care of by grants. It's significant increase in taxes.
Do we know what the 112 was then on line E? Page 91? What those items are?
Sounds like it's an in and out grant, but I don't know. Yeah, if you look at $71,000 worth of new tax.
The majority of that increase is in the inspections.
Yes, all of it is in, I'd say all of it is in inspections, because inspections, property tax act, 76,700. So it's all in inspections, and it's to reflect better revenue projections for assessments, licenses, and other revenue.
In the past, we had budgeted higher than being an actual, so we're correcting that.
When you say assessments, for like,
After we've gone out and mowed
Right.
somebody, and then we assess it.
so what happens when the assessment comes in after 5 years? You count it in the year you receive it then? You do count it in the year you receive it. And, well, some of that's upgrading that position back to Marge's position too then.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what are we gonna gain by that?
Actually, a better reflection of her tasks and duties. When that position was refilled after Marge vacated after, 32 years of employment here, some of those tasks and duties were removed from her because we didn't anticipate her being able to do all those duties. Since that time, over the last several years, she has not only taken on all those duties and responsibilities, but additional duties and responsibilities as well to keep the department running. So this is a much better reflection for her position.
And were the number of building permits up this year?
They were fairly flat this year. As far as total volume of revenue, they were pretty flat this year. With the permit fees that were changed, that will obviously change that number next year. If the total number of permits remain the same, it should increase that. Obviously, depending on the type of permit and the type of the project that comes in, those permits range from anywhere from a $185 remodel permit to a $17,000 new construction permit on a commercial structure. So.
But the number of projects last year did not increase much, correct?
No, it did not. That's correct.
So since Seaboard Triumph, we haven't seen a huge number of large projects.
Not large projects like that, no. We've had a lot of hotels, a lot of apartment buildings, a lot of apartment structures that take a lot of staff time and inspections, but they're nowhere near the scale of what the permit fee or the volume of what Seaboard Triumph was.
Go ahead and ask for your guy so that I can vote no. I want that one to vote today.
Okay. Well, Daryl, I just want to visit about the need, whether we have the need for a plans examiner. My questions are based on the feedback I get during the year from developers and from contractors, and it's not pointing the finger at any one person, just generally speaking, plans examiners, and whether we have a need for an additional one. And then housing inspector, is the housing inspector the person that goes to the rental properties?
That's correct.
We're doing that once every 3 years?
Yeah, we've actually got it down to just over 3 years.
Just over 3?
Just over 3 years. The goal was to get it down to 4 years, and we've exceeded that.
Do you think that hurts us to have it spread out that far apart in inspections?
I don't.
Of the 27 residential, or of the 27 properties we had on our last placard hearing.
Yes.
How many of those were rental?
Not very many. Very few.
They were all mainly
The majority of those were occupied. They were abandoned. The banks didn't take them over. They didn't take responsibilities for the structures more times than not. And then, of course, you do have, the sanitation or the fires and things like that. They got them red tagged, and then they just didn't have any funds or sources to do anything with them, and then they just continued to decay.
What's your viewpoint on a plans examiner, additional plans?
I don't see where I could justify another full-time equivalency there. There are peaks and valleys. The peaks, obviously, we could use a little additional help, but I couldn't stand in front of you and say that we need a full-time individual. I think the bigger thing is that we continue to educate and we bring in better sets of plans. I mean, you get big projects like the Seaboard Triumph we talked about earlier, or when we did the Hard Rock Hotel, and we had some very complete sets of plans that came through, and they went through very quickly. A lot of the delays and times come back and forth between the communication back and forth between the project developer and whether it's residential or commercial, either one, getting all that information we need to be able to move that forward. And that's where a lot of the time and delay is. We're dealing with one right now that once there was a professional architect involved, even they didn't quite understand exactly what it took to do the separations between the two. A lot of that is not just building code, it's also fire code. And the fire code comes into play. There's a lot of people that sign off on all these permits. So the more complete they are, the faster they will go through the process and be able to be done. And if you go through any of those, again, it doesn't really necessarily mean the largest scale. That isn't the biggest impact on the time. The biggest impact on the time is that communication back and forth to get the right information to be able to approve that permit. And it might be a zoning thing. It might be fire separations. It might be sprinklers. It might be alarms. It might be, sewage, water, sanitary issues. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that come into play, but I couldn't stand in front of you and honestly tell you that I need another full-time plans examiner. I don't think that's a need.
How about housing inspector?
I don't necessarily think it's housing. I think it's more into code enforcement. I think that would be the visual impact you'd see in your city. More lots getting cleaned up, more houses having requirement to fix them up, paint them, what have you. Your visual impact is going to happen more there. But it's kind of a chicken and an egg. At one time, that department had 5 full-time secretaries. It has 1 now, and it has 2 part-timers. To be able to keep up and get the assist to the inspectors that is needed so they can do their job and be out inspecting instead of in the office doing data entry, to be honest, the most impact would be a clerical assistant, not an additional inspector, because we have to have that staff behind them so they can be out in the field doing their job. They can do a lot more inspections if they didn't have to be in the office detailing and doing data entry. There's a lot of inspections that quite honestly don't get even tracked in our system because they just don't have time to log them. And I'm talking more about building inspections than I am nuisance or code enforcement, because those are follow up with a certified letter typically. But building inspections, I've got a couple inspectors, they don't even have close to even log even half of their inspections in the system that they were out and actually did an inspection. They'll get to the end and they'll do the finals on them, get those logged into place so that they're there for the CO, but all that information should be in place and it should be logged, and they're not even having time to do that. So the biggest impact we could have in that department is a full-time clerical assistant.
Isn't that logging critical, though?
It's very critical, in a legal aspect especially, whether the city's involved in that or not. If there's a legal action in the future between even a buyer and a previous owner, all that information is very, very crucial to the outcome of it, whether the city's involved in that lawsuit or not. Those are very important things. Or to come back and see how it was constructed to begin with is very important, especially if they're going to be doing add-ons and things like that to the structure or remodels. All of that information is very important.
And it all impacts safety.
Absolutely, it impacts safety.
It doesn't look like I had
Make your motion. I mean, we'll bring it back. What position do you want?
Well,
now?
I think I think the clerical for the input of the critical information, that's not, I didn't realize that's not being.
Yeah, I mean, the reflection of
Would
our
it have to
total.
be a full-time position?
I think it does for stability. There's so much to learn in that position. We go through
But did
quite
you
a
say you already have 2 part-time?
Yeah.
I think it's just like human rights. You would almost want to restructure and say, look, do you want 2 full-time or 1 full-time and 2 part-time? Like, is that really the most effective?
Well, I mean, I understand why the situation is that they're part-time positions. I get that as an economical thing. But as far as productivity, it's not the right choice for both of them to be part-time. Even if one of them was full-time versus the 2 part-time would be a big help, because of rotation. It takes well over a year for them to learn all the different aspects of the job, whether it's through assessments, invoicing, how you take care of customers. I mean, let's face it, our department takes care of everything from extra dog poop in the front yard to building, how many millions of dollars worth of structures. So we have such a wide variety, and for that person to be the person, a point of contact on that phone coming in and be able to handle that call and handle those customers coming in, it's a point of customer service. They need to know a little bit about all of those. And to be able to handle that, it takes them probably close to a year by the time they're able to invoice and get set documents ready for assessments, to do rental permits, to be able to process those permits, process all those payments and everything like that. By the time they get used to that and be able to provide that good customer service, they're ready they're gone. They're taking another position within the city or somewhere else at a full-time capacity.
Because my thing is, I mean, in listening to Dan, his line of questioning and kind of your response of where maybe priorities could or should be. I mean, I was just on Open Line a week ago or whatever it was, and one of the things that Charlie talked about that his frustration is you drive all through town and there are a lot of neighborhoods that need a lot of help, you know what I mean? And houses that just aren't, not drivable, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can see myself living here, even in every neighborhood. I mean, no one's immune to that.
Yeah.
You go in Morningside, North Side, West Side, anywhere.
Yeah, it used to be concentrated. It's not anymore. It's spread pretty much through the entire community. So.
Yeah, and his example was you go to some other cities, and neighborhoods you don't go into because they're more unsightly, but then almost a lot of the other neighborhoods are more well kept, but our community, I think, if we can move the needle on that, that's something I can move forward with.
Can I add to that? We've talked about this internally a lot, and Sioux City has very old housing, and are 10 or 20% older than many of the communities in Iowa. So Daryl's talked about this many times. The need to stay on top of the inspections. You got 30,000 houses or whatever we have. It's a lot of units to stay on top of, and he's consistently said, I don't know what we can afford. Okay, I'm not sure how it fits in the budget, but he's identified that need for clerical help to make the inspection process more efficient for some time.
So you'd keep your 2 part-time and you'd like to add 1 FTE to that?
Yeah, I think so, but I mean, even if that wasn't possible to get into the budget, I think we would look at even moving one of the part-time to a full-time position would be helpful. I know that's only 11 more hours a week, but 11 more hours a week is a lot, and especially when you get stability. I've got 2 very good part-time people right now, and quite frankly, they've both been applying for other positions throughout the city.
Well, how would it work to bump both of those to full-time then and split that third person that you were
I think it
thinking
would
about?
provide us with a lot of stability and be able to get a lot more documentation. But, you know, at this point.
That's a lot of money, yeah.
That's a lot of money.
It
And
is.
I'm not looking to,
Right.
you know,
Because that's 2 benefits instead of 1.
right. I mean, we've been asking for some of this.
How many hours are your
For
2
each,
now?
for each one of those,
29
to
each.
convert them from part-time
much?
to full-time.
29
it's
each.
About $23,000 a year for each position.
To go to full.
Yep.
And
from
how much
part-time
would it be to
full-time.
add 1 full-time?
One full-time person, 65,000,
So it's 6 of one, half a dozen other.
A little cheaper just to move them both to full-time, but
Right.
But it's almost, I mean, I feel that, I don't know what Dan wants
And
to
they're already
motion or where
trained.
he's at. My thing that I like with Karen, you know, working with human rights, is it's almost like you go back and decide what you think
yeah,
would
you know,
work best.
and the reason I say that the clerical is probably the most impact we're going to have on it. I mean, I've got one code inspector that comes in, and the code inspector is the stuff you're going to see. That's the stuff, the yard's getting cleaned up, you know, that kind of stuff. The letters going out say, hey, paint your house, those kind of things. The
Well,
visual
letting
stuff
them
you're going
know
to see to
what
make the community a little
programs
cleaner.
and stuff.
Yeah, she spends probably over 2 hours of her day doing nothing but data entry, because the part-time person that we have assigned to code enforcement couldn't keep up with that volume. There's just no way.
But your
Darrell,
2
what's the
part-timers
title?
are already trained, so the onboarding would be non-existent.
Exactly right. It would just go to immediate impact.
Right.
Is the correct title then administrative secretary? Is that what we're talking about?
Clerical assistant, I believe is what it is.
Is what you're asking, that would go full-time?
Yeah,
As a full-time, so.
yeah, I think that would be the best use
I'd
of
ask the
city
city
dollar.
manager then and Jeff and the community development, economic development department, come up with something for us for the wrap-up.
Okay.
What it would take.
Thank you.
Get around that.
Yeah, just one thing to point out, these are likely civil service jobs, so the part-time employees would have to apply, pass the test, and get on the list to go to full-time.
I just
It's
wanna
not a guarantee that they would
I understand.
necessarily qualify.
I just want to take the step to get full-time help so we can start doing the job correctly.
So just to be clear, you want to, a memo on what the conversion of both of those
Sounds like.
part-time positions would be?
Julian-
Or what your
and Alex would like to-
suggestion would be. You know what I mean? Like, do you need both of them at full-time or what? I would trust your judgment more than me sitting up here.
I can honestly say that the impact would be much greater with both of them there, but I would be very pleased to even take one of them, if that's what we came to. I mean, I'm not the one that wants to rock the budget. I'm looking at the department, and as far as impact that we can provide for that, I think if we can get both of them to full-time, that would be great.
So the impact, you want the 2 clerical assistants to do the update on the inspection, leave the inspectors in the field?
The inspectors be able to be in the field more than they are right now, because now going back in and doing the data entry on their inspections, doing the certified letters, right now there's a big, between the Tyler system and the Beacon system, to actually get the legal description of properties takes so much longer now than it used to take. And that's important. If we're going to do a search warrant on a property to do a cleanup, now all of a sudden, if that letter went out there and there's just one little thing wrong with that legal description, we're going to get it kicked, and we're going to start the process all over again. Now we've pushed that cleanup farther down the line. So all that time really adds up, and it makes a big difference to be able to what they can do. So that inspector, instead of spending 2 additional hours a day, and they're doing data entry into the system on certified mails and things like this, searching legal descriptions, they could spend that 2 extra times out in the field making more inspections.
Yeah, they're making one heck of a lot of inspections now, according to your stats.
Compared to
Your performance measures.
Compared to a number of years ago, they were at 18,000. In 2007, 2008, there were around 18,000 inspections a year, and that's when we had 5 combination inspectors at that time.
Yeah.
Now we have 3.
Well, the performance measure says residential code enforcement inspections in 19 was 48,987. That possible?
That's correct.
Page 100.
That's correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, wow. They're
wound up tight.
working, yeah. I agree.
Okay, thanks, Darrell.
What's next?
That's fine, I'll talk to you.
We're going for lunch and.
Then we'll go to lunch.
So what did we decide we're going to?
Look at 1 and 2, and we'll look at.
Okay.
Thanks for taking so much time, Marty. You got us back on schedule.